All right, we are back. Good morning, Zan. I am not going down for Tony's Little Brown, okay? I could just feel it in my soul. They were like, do, 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 do. I know it. So I do apologize that we set it down so quick, but I don't know. I tried Googling, can you be reported for showing a shadow uh, of somebody's baloney? And I don't know the answer. So I'm just going to assume you could be and can be. So yeah, we got rid of that. But we are back. Um, like I said, Tony was totally denying it. Totally. First, he said it was a thumb, and then he said that it was manipulated. Truth is, it happened, and it was gross. So we are back, Forever Army. Like number 4. Thank you, girl next door. You always come in with the likes. I love that. You and Money Moves. Hey, Linda Lane. Gypsy Trails. We are back, Christina Rain. So yeah, what do you guys think? You think it was Tony's baloney? Put a 1 in the chat. Do you think somebody else manipulated? Put a 2. You know it, Jameson. Girl, they were like, click, click, click. I could feel it. I felt it immediately. Absolutely, Julia. Absolutely. Thank you. He started the audio recording. Right. He lied. He absolutely lied. All the ones coming in. We all know it. Unfortunately, we all know it. Now, is it just me or did that thing look like swollen? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Oh, bless it. I don't even want to think further about it. So I showed Tony's balonies in. I can link you all to the video. Jay's a little more braver than I, and she's a little more seasoned. So if she feels safe having it, I'm sure it is safe to have it, but just being careful. I got a lot of haters out here. So if you click the link I just showed you, you can go ahead and watch the video, come right back, tell us what you think. I watched it in real time as well as me, Tiffany. Now granted, I came in right after it happened, so I didn't actually see that part of it. But it was pretty obvious to me that it took place. I think he sat in a chair half naked. I think he got up to pee. I really think he got up to pee. It kind of looked like a bathroom in the backdrop a little bit. If you listen closely, you could hear the trinkles of the pee. I don't know. It's definitely not photoshopped. He should just apologize. I don't think it's, you know, listen, I'll be honest with you. The way I feel about it is that type of humiliation can lead somebody to a very dark place. I don't want to participate to that type of dark place for anybody. I'd be mortified if it was me. Um, Tony's kind of taking it more like I don't know. I mean, I understand why he's denying it, right? Uh, but yeah, it's unfortunate that it happened, honestly. I can hate Tony, dislike Tony strongly. I won't say hate, but I do feel bad that it happened. Wait, his lying case ruined him, but called the FBI. He did call the FBI over like memes and stupid stuff. I think he had to pee, really. I think he peed as well. I think it was just, he went to the restroom. If you listen closely, sounds like it's full flushing, and you can hear the background noise. It does sound like a bathroom. Jameson's like, I'm not giving any pass. Right, like ringing the FBI. Hello, FBI. FBI, they're making memes of my little penis. What are you doing, Tony? What are you doing? And, of course, Tony's saying they're going to send out 5 or 6 more cease and desist because, well, Tony's unhappy that people haven't gotten quiet. He showed his mister. Listen, go check it out, Steph 284, come back. Click this link. I'm not going to show it again just in case. It's like 2 seconds, and then come back over and tell us what you think. I think Tony was showing his baloney. Good morning, Monica. He did call the FBI. He said he was calling over memes and things like that. So, yeah, I don't know. But there was a update in Summers. As we all know, it's been entirely too long. Summer Wells is one of the saddest. I think is one of the first cases to take over the true crime community the way it did. It's this, this beautiful little girl, blonde hair, blue eyes. She didn't have the best home life from what people perceive. I think she looked very I think Candace did it best with what she knew how, but others disagree with that, and that's fine. But June 15th of 2021, Amber Alert went out for Summer Wells, and here we are, 2024, and there's still no answers, right? It's devastating. It's devastating. But the fact of the matter is these type of things do happen. Right. Why didn't he just turn off his camera? You know? And then to go on and replay it, like but not actually play the part and try to convince that, because sorry, but a lot of the TikTokers he's hanging out with, they're like, maybe they're a little more simple to manipulate. You know what I mean? Right. That is a beanie. It just doesn't look healthy to me. I just take the embarrassment as YouTube. Something else will happen. Right. That's what I was saying. If he didn't speak further about it. See, Prissy, I think he was using the restroom. Yeah, we're almost, it's 4 days away from being 3 years with no answers. No answers at all. Prostate, bladder, but he should have excused himself. He could have just turned off the camera. I don't know. I feel a little bad for the guy. I don't know how much, I don't know. Whatever. I just know if it was me, I'd be mortified, and bless his heart, he should have just kept with the whole it's a thumb thing and moved on with it, but he doubled down. So the Wild female, and they give a new interview, and it's very interesting. It's very interesting to me because they come out this theory of theirs. Yeah, I think he was peeing. Hello. TikTok. Mr. Tomato. TikTok. Oh gosh. Poor Tony. Poor Tony's wife. Lord. All right. It's actually sad. Let's be a little serious about it. It's actually sad. He was talking about JLR's stomach issues. Well, he's a real crappy person. The fact that he got his information from Betty pertaining to JLR, and they're literally blackmailing another female creator who is friends with JLR. There's no relations like that. It's despicable. It's despicable to blackmail somebody's marriage. Like, take several seats. That was your punishment for doing that. Your punishment for that was your little baloney was shown to the world. I mean, you don't go around blackmailing people and blackmailing their relationships and their marriages. It's despicable. It's absolutely despicable. And all because what? Because Betty's a scorned ex-lover? Because Betty wasn't chosen? Because Betty, is embarrassed that she praised JLR for all these years and then he broke her heart and now she's out here trying to slander other people and ruin their marriages? Betty was still married when she was dating JLR, so talk about home wrecking. It just makes me that karma got him very quick. Exactly, Julie. That would humble me enough to he could at least taken a few days off, but nope. So moving past that, we can retouch that all later. But I do want to play this because I thought what Don Wells said was interesting, and I want you all to keep an open mind. I know that was a little embarrassing. I know you all may not. A lot of people don't care for the Wells parents, and I get that. I understand that, but keep an open mind when you're listening to this.
Years since the disappearance of then 5-year-old Summer Wells from her Hawkins County home.
The night she was reported missing, authorities said Summer was last seen walking from her home on Ben Hill Road in the Beech Creek community.
I want to touch on that after this video, Linda. If you can comment that again when this video ends, I would love to touch on that. I just don't want to interrupt speaking about Summer to speak about that. But I do have a lot to say on it. Oh, congratulations, Angel. Oh, you having a boy, a girl? That's exciting. Congratulations. I'm thankful I'm not an actual granny yet, but the good thing is when I do become one, I'll be used to being called granny. For those unaware, you can call me Jess. I want to change my channel name. I'm no longer happy with it, but I'm not an actual granny. I know a lot of people feel weird calling me a granny. So you can call me GW, you call me Jess, Jessica, whatever you want. You don't know anything about Summer Wells? I saw Tim Mullins asking Hawkins County to verify that statement. Ooh. All right.
Hours later, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation would issue an endangered child alert for her. That would later turn into an Amber Alert.
To this day, law enforcement still has not located Summer Wells.
So you all picked up on that as well. Summer was last seen walking. Since when? Since when? Because we never heard that. Yeah. Let's see.
and are not any closer to finding her. News Channel 11's Ansley Daniels spoke with Summer's parents.
Not any closer.
We have pushed investigators for months to learn about new details or updates in this case. What we do know is that her family continues their search to bring Summer home.
Look how beautiful Summer is. I don't you just want to wrap that baby up in all the hugs and kisses and love and, brush her hair and braid her hair and put her so many things. You don't look old enough to be a great granny. Well, we start young, don't we? Listen to me talking. Hey, Shay B. Hey, Joe Madre. Since always, the first thing that came out that she was walking. I don't recall that. I recall that Candace was walking. I thought the last thing we knew about Summer was she was down in the basement playing with toys. I don't recall ever hearing that she was last seen walking. I know that Candace was allegedly walking. Isn't it sad that they both have double middle names and it's just 12 grands. Oh, no, thank you. No, thank you. None yet. Hey, Alexis, you heard both? I never heard that. Okay. All right.
I spoke with both Dawn and Candace Wells in Kingsport at a place with deep meaning to Summer's disappearance. Borden Park is anything but quiet this time of year. But 3 years ago, it was filled almost weekly with people praying for Summer Wells.
I see all these families, with their kids and how much they enjoy them and stuff. And we were stripped away from all our kids. All our kids have been kidnapped from us by
So first thing he says is we were stripped away from all our kids. All of our kids had been kidnapped from us.
We were stripped away from all our kids. All our kids have been kidnapped from us by DCS, and we're not sure about Summer, but we know about where our boys are at.
While the prayer vigils are now few and far between, Dawn and Candace Wells haven't stopped praying that their daughter Summer will be found.
We have hope, always. But there's not much hope in this world.
Why do they always say these hallmarky things, right? I don't know. I mean, maybe speaking from his heart, I feel like Don has always been a smooth talker. Listen, I personally don't think they had anything to do with it. I never did. And I believe if they did, that would have been, they would have been arrested by now. I don't think these two can, trick the law enforcement by any means. We even heard it from Ronnie Lawson. She was last seen leaving the home, apparently made it further away than they were expecting. Oh. People sent them alcohol to watch them get drunk on lives. They did. I will never forget when Molly said, tell Don Wells we'll S his D for an interview. Despicable. Did Jay put? Yeah, it's right here. It's right here, Steph. Sorry. Click that. Take a gander. And come back. He still refused to take any accountability for the fact that he doesn't have any of his kids.
We have to trust God that there's hope in eternal life in heaven.
Summer was reported missing on June the 15th of 2021.
We know that she was taken off her property, and we know she was taken away in a vehicle, or they would have found her in the area if she was somewhere in the area. But who's responsible for her? We don't know.
I asked Dawn and Candace when was the last time they heard from investigators.
I do love seeing that there's still signs around there. This one right here on the screen, the Amber Alerts on the poles. I'm glad that Hawkins County has kept the spirit of Summer alive 3 years later. They're still looking at, or they still have the, the whatever, telling people to look. The night that Summer Wells went missing, WJHL reported that Summer was seen walking away from the home in gray shorts, pink shirt, and possibly barefoot. I think that Candace, this has always been my theory. Candace, it was prescription day. They likely hustled a few of them. I think Candace went down to meet somebody to make a trade or was using with somebody at that moment. Summer likely went looking for her mother and came across somebody else. That's always been my thought. She's another one that had the scent go to the end, and I feel like it has to be that somebody wrong person, wrong time type of thing. I don't know.
Investigators.
We haven't lately at all. It's been a while, over a year, I think. I haven't talked to any law enforcement at all. I tried to talk to the FBI agent about it, but that didn't go anywhere.
Dawn said
So the FBI agents aren't even speaking to Don at this point. Like, they're just not giving any updates. They're not giving any, information. It's almost like they're not even looking anymore. That's what I think, Jem. I don't think the parents had anything to do with it. Summer wandered off. In my opinion, Candace feels guilty. I agree. I do as well, Danielle. The only thing I feel certain of is that Candace has never been truthful. I don't know anyone who believes the 2-minute part of her story. I don't think Candace appears to me to be a person who pays attention to time. I always say, like, I'm going to go to the store. I'll be 20 minutes. I end up being like an hour, Theory 2, her brothers didn't want to play with her. Mom wasn't available or wanted to pay attention. She wandered. I think the mom thought she was grandma. Boys thought she was with Candace. They lived remotely and didn't have to watch the kids too closely. I agree. I do not think they harmed her intentionally.
says he feels that he and his wife Candace were targeted by the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office.
They intimidated us, they belittled us, and done everything they could amidst all the chaos. And then the CPS was there doing the same thing.
When asked about how he thinks about Summer's disappearance 3 years later, Don spoke about how he
They kept us, they belittled us, and done everything they could amidst all the chaos. And then the CPS was there doing the same thing.
when
I believe that about Don. I believe that they probably did do all those things because, let's face it, they weren't your typical family household, right? I think she made it Beech Creek Road, got snatched. I agree. That has always been my thoughts. Wow. So a lot of you agree with that. Put a 1 in the chat if you think Summer Wells wandered off and came across the wrong person or got lost in the woods. Put a 2 if you think her parents did anything to her. Yeah, I'm surprised it isn't, to be honest. Lots of 1s. We got a 2. Very curious of this. Day trippers unsure. Just me has a 2. Okay. T.O. girl. I feel like they want to be able to avoid, being interrogated and break-in. And I don't know. It's really unfortunate. I guess that's a mixture of unsure cheesecake. Wait just a minute. Betty was still. Well, if you listen to what Betty shared the other day, Ange, she says that she filed for a divorce at a certain time, which would have been the time. So she filed for the divorce. I didn't listen to her through myself. I had to listen through JP, and I still couldn't make it through. Oh, Lord, I couldn't make it through. Hey, Ma.
asked about how he thinks about Summer's disappearance 3 years later, Don spoke about a Department of Children's Services investigation.
They said somebody had called and said that we was giving our kids loaded guns to play with. And so they closed the case June 14th, which is something CPS does not do. They don't.
So do you guys remember this going around? You've spoken in here, Popcorn. We've seen you. Why are you trying to deny hanging with the cool crowd over here, Popcorn and M&Ms? But so that was interesting because do you all recall people were saying there was an open CPS and then others were saying it's not an open CPS, that it was because Summer disappeared? Well, here Don is telling us himself that there was an open CPS call and that it had to do with the kids allegedly having loaded guns, and then they closed it the day before Summer disappeared. That is weird. That Fred may have hit her and he was high on meth and put her in the car and he took to the junkyard. They interrogated him. Hey, malicious. Going to Don's workplace, getting fired is awful. Yeah. Separated 10 years before divorce was final. Stuff happens. I agree with that. But I think if you're blackmailing a married woman that you are going to ruin her marriage by putting slanderous comments out, you should, make sure you weren't married at the time as well. That's all. I don't think it's cool to do what they're doing right now. I don't think it's cool at all. Take your scorn's feelings and separate them from Sebastian's case.
just close cases. So it's really odd and mystifying why they closed the case June 14th, and then 24 hours later, Summer's gone.
Summer's mother.
So isn't that interesting that she was live this morning about them when she just said the other day she has never bashed parents. Hey, Jay Kels. She has never bashed parents. No, I'm not getting you wrong at all. I understand exactly what you're saying. Divorces do take a long time. My point is she didn't file for divorce until that moment. There would have been separate cases for the kids if founded cases are closed in 30 days. I'm telling you, so many kids are found by CPS, and I'm tired of hearing, and I say it myself, they're overwhelmed, they're understaffed, but it is one of our most important governmental programs. Enough with that. Enough with the excuses for them. Societal problem, in my opinion, intergenerational abuse, trauma cycles repeat through generations. Their style of parenting is normalized for them and their families. That's what I said. I personally think Candace did the best with what she knew. That's my feelings on it. There was plenty of pictures of them outside with the kids playing, taking the kids on trips. And I think she did the best she could. You don't believe that cold case? Interesting. Hey, Queen Bella. There may have been a report no case was open, so it would be closed. I see you, Tamara. Sorry. I didn't see you prior, but I see you now. Found my own nieces many times. I'm so sorry. My cat's name is Karen. I was on trial for a case that CPS found a little boy, 3-year-old boy. I had to testify. I'll never forget it. I'll never, ever forget it. Never forget the images I saw, the testimonies. I'll never. And CPS found that baby too. I mean, this though right here speaks to who and what they are, right? Like Candace is wearing a mommy shirt. She's wearing pajama pants. In my opinion, I know a lot of people spoke about the way Candace dressed. I always felt like Candace dressed that way because of trauma. A lot of women that are victims of sexual assault will often try to be less feminine. I just always felt bad for Candace in that aspect. Put kids in worse homes. So I can kind of understand why Don would say that, he feels like CPS kidnapped his kids. As a parent, I get where he's coming from. Does that mean I agree with him? No.
And said that we was giving our kids loaded guns to play with. And so they closed the case June 14th, which is something CPS does not do. They don't just close cases. So it's really odd and mystifying why they closed the case June 14th, and then 24 hours later, Summer's gone.
Summer's mother, Candace, sat in for part of our interview, but got up after a few questions.
She was going to try, but her emotions are just too much.
The last update in the Summer Wells case from law enforcement was...
What do you guys think of the fact that Candace got up and walked away? Hey, Patricia, do you think it was just a mother grieving, or do you think it was... Oh, time traveler, I didn't see you. Hello. Do you think it was just being too upset? I would blame myself too. I would. Hey, Caroline. I can't really speak on how CW dresses. I stay living in either sweats or yoga pants, t-shirts most days. Same. Bone collector. God bless Candace. I thought CPS was called because Summer and the boys had found a ladder and got on the roof. Well, we're hearing here from Don that it was because of that. No, and then listen, the woman has like no teeth right now. Maybe it's I don't know. It could be many reasons.
Was an age-progressed photo released in June of last year. This image was released by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. If you have any information about the whereabouts of Summer Wells, call 1-800-TBI-FIND. That number is right there on your screen.
So sad. It's just sad. 3 years later, of course, if you have any information, there was this lady that came out recently, and this is such a shitty thing to do. This lady came out recently and said that Summer was dropped off to her house and that she had footage. Did you all see this? They are very accurate. That was amazing. How beautiful she is. Clinically depressed. Listen, I've always said I'm in recovery, but if something happened to my kids or one of my children, or, you know, my recovery would probably be the last thing I'd be able to keep. Someone's just making fun of her in this chat alone. It's terrible. I know someone that lives in the area that took her to lunch months later and said Candace acted just like a grieving mom, and it was terribly sad. I imagine. Thank you, super fan. She looks a lot like her oldest brother. Cotton candy, yeah. Yeah. This is an age progression picture. This is what they assume Summer would look like today. So keep your eyes out. You're no longer looking for the petite little tiny 5-year-old baby girl. Instead, we're looking for, you know, a older Summer. And listen, taking your kids everywhere doesn't mean no abuse. No, it doesn't mean no abuse. It absolutely doesn't. But a lot of times, you know, mothers that are abusive and absent and don't care, they don't care to take their kids out to places. They don't care to take photos of their kids out playing. They don't care to take photos of their kids, right? And I've always felt that way when I seen how many photos there were of Summer and how many places and things they did outside of their home to keep the kids active. I felt like it was, you know, some of the people in here that would judging her don't even do that with their kids. You know what I mean? So I felt like it was one of those things. I don't know. I checked it. Oh yeah, I had to put it down. SS. The kids always seemed clean and happy. They did. They seemed happy. I think they tried the best with what they had. I do. You know, a lot of people judge based off where they live, and you know, Molly was really judgmental on them. But you got to remember where these people live and what they have. And what they don't have, most importantly. Sips and dribbles. Wow, my friend's child was put at home. All she ate was rice for 2 weeks. Ugh. Exactly, Day Tripper. I'm with you. I can have empathy for them and side-eye them at the same time. Yes, absolutely. Exactly. Exactly. So did anybody else hear the lady that claimed she had the footage of Summer, that Summer was dropped off into her to her house? That was really weird. And quite frankly, it was BS. Oh. Lady claims Summer Wells is on her home security footage and was dropped off to her. So this is from White Boy. He, you know, grills the lady. She ends up sending this video and trying to claim that it's Summer in the video. It's definitely not Summer in the video. And the woman's, you know, a real piece of shit for doing this.
So this is going to say 5:36. Okay, whatever. Let's see this.
So the lady's pointing up here, claiming this is Summer, right? You can follow her finger. Used to be on that mystery angle streams and was all up in this stuff. This is nuts to do this. I think it's very telling that every presser says Summer is last seen walking off from her home. I agree. I agree.
Okay, so she's pointing at something. I haven't paused. Take a zoom in. Get us.
Ma'am, the lady's pointing at nothing. Absolutely nothing. Why would she say this is Summer? Oh, that makes sense. Over in Swear Gardens. Okay. There's nothing here. This lady is crazy for doing this. It was rude.
Okay,
Disrespectful.
let me rewind it for the ones who didn't see. We have Look
You
at
have
this. My
nothing.
mouse going in circles. I was doing that. Somebody answer. Okay.
Now she's pointing
Okay.
to a different area. I can't with this lady. So basically, there's nothing here. It was a sick rumor to set forth. The lady is crazy for doing that. I don't know why she did it. But it's clearly there's nobody there. We don't see anything. It wasn't Bones, Lisa J. Jones. It was potential sighting. It's either a ghost or an alien orb. Good morning, BB. She's one who called the wrong billboard company, said no billboards were up. Oh, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, what did you all think of the neighbor that came forward and spoke with JLR? What you all think of that? I found it to be very interesting because there's an interesting history with that lady. And I know a few people were getting on me for saying this in another channel, but that lady, you know, with utmost respect, I'm not saying it to disrespect her, but she is absolutely in communications with creators behind the scenes. You know, take that for what it's worth, but it's true. I'm not just making that up. She's been in contact for months with some of these creators. So it was a shadow, I believe a tree. She said it was Candace dropping Summer off there. I never seen it a year ago, still don't today. Yeah, she's weird for that, Chris. I don't appreciate that. What do you guys think? To be fair, she might actually see Summer there. You think so? You think she's just envisioning Summer there on her own doing? Like stared at it too long type of thing, or I don't know. I just don't know. The lady should be bashing for talking to JLR. She didn't mention names because not her place to say her neighbors' names. Well, I don't think anybody's bashing her, but I do think that, you know, when you come out here and you get you put yourself in the spotlight of a case like this, people are going to speak on it, right? Now, necessarily don't have to bash her, sure, but I do think that her coming forward said a lot. So one thing I know is this lady is the head of the gossip group in that town. So Miss Bobby. Oh, is there a channel bashing her? Oh, well, that's a shame. I knew that would happen. Slenderman is a movie based in Summers area. If you haven't watched it, please do. I love the you know, Slenderman things. Hey, Miss L. Oh, I'm sorry you can't stay. I hope you have a great day. She seems the neighborhood gossip and has info from everyone. Everyone thinks she might not know anymore what's true nor rumors. That's what I said. That's exactly what I said. You know, after so long, you definitely get your personal opinion on things. You get a personal bias, if you will, so that you hear things differently. And I think at this point, she doesn't know the facts from, you know, feelings. Heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend.
Been there from day one, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know that I was in your group from day one. I was in another group from, well, not really even honestly.
Yeah, she was in Seth Rogers' group from day one. Okay, that's where she was. Do not understand that once you go on social media platforms such as YouTube, you're legally termed a public figure, and that puts a target on your back. YouTube's vicious, man. There is a song that goes like that, right? Heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend. You weren't in town. Something like that. I can't remember it, but BBB said I says cease.
Honestly, day one was such a trauma, just dramatic day that I don't even think the only thing I was in on day one was our neighborhood group, because that's where Katie had first commented about him being gone. So no, actually I wasn't in any Facebook groups.
So my biggest worry is if some of the information she gave out was not being released because it's part of an interrogation. That's my only concern here. REO, Speedwagon. I knew it had to be a song. Thank you. Heard it from another. You've been messing around. Burn around, baby. Yeah. Okay. Heard it from Frank. Okay.
one. It was such a crazy moment. So probably,
Yeah, when you say Katie commented, what do you mean by that? She joined a neighborhood group?
well, so I'm an admin of our private neighborhood group. And she created a post, I want to say around, I want to say 7:30 maybe.
Is that by the end of this stream, right? By the end of the stream, nobody will be. But is anybody surprised that she runs the neighborhood group? Right, she don't live beside them. She lives, I agree. I agree. Fine, no singing. Listen, I have Sirius XM. I like to go through 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s music. I like watching the way it transitioned and grew. And I'll tell you what, today's music's really filthy compared to that of the, previous decades. But that's just a little off topic there. Not surprised at all. Nope. Okay.
Ish 7:30 that morning, Monday morning, simply just saying, my son is missing, and kind of commented on a little bit about him. Like, I think she made the comment about how tall he was, and that he was autistic and he was missing. Right. Please check your cameras. It was just like a 2-liner, just real quick, shooting it out there.
So maybe an hour and a half, hour something after she and Chris, that we found out that they called and reported Sebastian missing.
Correct. Yes, because I think that from what I understood, she called around 6:30 that morning, I think. Wasn't about 6:30, I think is.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Susie, but you know what? You're right. It does kind of fit in with, I guess this could end up being like a Jody Sue. I don't know. But what we have here is a neighbor of the Proudfoots. No, she's not really a neighbor. She just lives in the same neighborhood. She's not a neighbor. And she's the head PTA gossip is what she is to me. Now, that's not disrespect to Bobby. I'm glad she doesn't live in my neighborhood. But that's what she reminded me of. She reminds me of the PTA group of moms that get together and they spill all the town gossip. That's all. You like to get your hair cut at the same time as somebody like her because you get to hear the gossip but not really be part of. You know what I mean? That's how I feel with people like Bobby.
So yeah, it was. And I think from what another neighbor said, that she actually caught her SUV leaving the neighborhood right before that or right after that. And so she did all that and then came back. And then I guess that's when she put it on the Facebook page. But I also remember what I thought was very odd was shortly before that, another neighbor. So if their house is here, if they're going up Stafford, a little bit farther up Stafford, was actually the first one to ask, hey, what's all going on in the neighborhood? Because
see, and this is where I feel like we're gonna hear something. So everything she has heard has been like a telephone game passed down. A neighbor from a neighbor. She heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who heard it from another type of thing. That song will be in my head all day. Thank you. 6 up. But that's how I feel this woman is saying things.
Because my older son left to go to work that morning, approximately 8 o'clock, and there was already police all up and down Stafford, like just covering it. And they were already out walking around and stuff. And so I don't know, I guess she saw some of that traffic as she was leaving to go to work, and she posted first on the Facebook page. And then Katie, after that, is when she posted, and I went back to find that, and that previous neighbor deleted her post.
What about Katie's post?
I don't know. No.
So, all right. So I'm going to fast forward to a little bit. There's a few things she said that kind of threw me off. We don't need to watch the whole thing. I'm sure many of us have watched the whole thing already. But I personally, this is what I believe. I believe that this lady here was set in from Seth Rogers to get the focus back on the Proudfoots. I feel like this was a, to get everybody back talking about the Proudfoot setup, if you will. Let me find this part. Oh, I did it wrong. Hold on. Okay, now we do it this way. Verify you can answer appropriately. So okay. So there's a few things that stood out to me. First off, how many of you, and I mean, I don't, but how many of you know where your trash goes? Like, I don't know where they take my trash when they pick it up. I thought at first that this was her. I thought this was Brittany that comes in chat, but then I realized it's not because Brittany was over in JLR's bashing them. So I don't think it was her. But I have no idea where my trash goes. I feel like if my child ever went missing, I'm screwed because I just don't know these things. And these people seem to know all this stuff, all of it.
You said there, you cannot see a physical person. There is absolutely no physical proof of Sebastian being at their house that night after dinner. There's
Hey, what the crock? So now we find out, hey, Cheese, we find out that she says that on the footage that is alleged to be Sebastian throwing out the trash, that it's just a silhouette. So you can't see Sebastian. Now she goes on to say there's no proof that Sebastian even came home from dinner, right? Okay.
there's nothing. There's her car coming home. My neighbor did tell me that she saw her car come, but she parks in the garage, so nobody saw him get out of the car.
What time was that? I always want to know what time she arrived home. Do you know?
I asked, and she said that it was so dark that she couldn't really see. She saw.
Now, listen to this, right? So how can you not see? The being dark has nothing to do with the time. Look at your clock, man. What time was it? Now, these people, they know if somebody changed their curtains in the neighborhood. They know that somebody got an Uber to go to the airport. They know all these details of everybody's stuff, but they don't know the crucial things like what time. What time did your neighbor watch Katie pull into her driveway? Like, I don't know. Something about it just it drove me nuts. I didn't like it. I agree. They got to get it back onto Katie and Chris. That's how I felt this was done.
About 6 or so, I think is what she said, ish, because they went to dinner at Texas and then supposedly came home, and then her car came into the driveway around 6, and then somebody pulled the trash bin out.
See, like you didn't know prior to this where they went to dinner. This is what happens after 3 months when this lady's running all these groups and she's on all the social medias. She's mixing up facts from her opinion and gossip in the groups, in my opinion. Hey, Wendy. Yeah, same. And why was KB being watched? Right. There's some weird things going on here. Some weird things.
After that. But they don't know who it was because you can't tell.
So no evidence. Any neighbor, including yourself or because you all talk, the neighbors talk to everybody and say there's nothing to indicate that he was home that night. He got home.
There's no proof of that.
There's no proof of that, says Bobby. So that's one thing that stood out to me. Her saying there's no proof of that. Now, another thing, if you go further through her interview, give me just a second, she often says that nobody even knew Sebastian existed, right? Nobody even knew Sebastian lived there. He didn't play outside. Nobody knew him. And it's like, but then she goes on to speak as if she knows them. She goes on to say things. All right, this part. I think it's right here. So they kind of speak like nobody knew he existed. They kept to themselves, but then you knew all the deets.
Seth Rogers, and Seth is adamant that he was told or he's seen.
That's because LE has told him that.
What's up with that?
Because LE has told him that. Law enforcement has told him that.
Oh, geez, Gary. That's
why?
That's the question I asked when I called.
So, all right. So for a little backstory, she is now saying that it was not trash trucks. Okay. it wasn't trash trucks, that it was two people with flashlights. This is what Bobby's saying. So JLR is like, well, wait, even Steph said the police told him that it was the trash truck, and she's adamant it wasn't trash truck. And why would they tell Steph that? Well, here's the thing. They're doing an investigation. How do we know what Bobby came out here and said doesn't harm that investigation? Are we supposed to know that it wasn't the trash truck? Are we supposed to know that there was a car in the area? When the police were asked to speak on that video, it wasn't supposed to be out there. Nick Barris put out the video of the alleged trash truck that was never meant to be put out there. When the police were asked to speak on it, they said they couldn't. They had no comment for it because it's part of an investigation. I'm not sure this is okay.
I got I think all of us are just super frustrated as this continues to go on, that we don't understand what's happened. We don't know what's happened. You know, we've all been involved in trying to find him day one. We've spread it. We've shared it on social media. You know, a lot of us were out with law enforcement the first week or so, you know, looking for him and stuff. I mean, you know, this shook us up to the core. It flipped our neighborhood upside down and just shook us up. I mean, nobody left their house for 2 weeks.
So here's another important thing. Do you all recall when Sebastian came out, or I'm sorry, when Chris came out and said the neighbors were upset? The neighbors were upset about the visuals. The neighbors were upset about the traffic, right? Anybody else recall that? And everybody kind of said like, oh, that's not true. Why would the neighbors be upset? BS. You know, they want to find Sebastian. Well, we find out here from Bobby, they sure were upset. Okay, they were upset about it.
Even the families who walk their dogs every single day, we didn't see them for 2 weeks.
Why?
So,
What? Why?
yeah, I mean, we didn't know what was going on. We had no idea.
Bobby's sitting out there with her binoculars, like, where are the couple that walked the dog? You know, Tim and Sally. And they got the German Shepherd they bought 5 years ago from that pet shop down the street that closed when good old Tim took over the shop and turned it into a Rite Aid. What happened to them? That's how I feel Bobby is, like gazing out with her binoculars.
What happened? I mean, when you have a 15-year-old kid that just vanishes in thin air, nobody wants to leave. We're scared. And then, of course, you see Chris, you know, getting upset through all these YouTube videos. And if you know your neighbor is that upset and...
Shut up, Bobby. This is where I have to just straight up say, shut up, Bobby. Because you're talking about for 2 weeks, nobody walked their dogs. And now you're talking about current time. All these videos where Chris is coming out upset. There was one time where Chris was on a public platform and got upset. There was one time. She's acting like the man's out here threatening people left and right. It's not.
Threatening people and saying the things he's saying, you're not going to go be a part of that. You're going to...
Can somebody tell me at any point where Chris Proudfoot came out here and threatens people? Well, when he threatened to slap somebody with a cease and desist and everybody lost their shit over it. But here's Seth Rogers passing them out like they're candy. Right? Yeah, she's like the living definition of my avatar.
You're going to stay in your little cocoon and stay away from them, and
your little cocoon.
I mean, lock your doors and be by yourself and protect yourself and just stay away from it.
You've never seen Sebastian Rogers in the neighborhood or walking around or anything prior to that day? Nothing.
From what I understand from neighbors that live right close to him, the only time they ever saw...
Okay, so this is where she's saying Sebastian was never seen in the neighborhood, right? But yet we know that a neighbor called in that Sebastian was found hiding underneath their car one day, right? We know that. We know that Sebastian took the bus every single day to school and got off the bus every day. So we know that. So now to say, like, listen, not for nothing, but kids don't really play like they used to. Sebastian was 15 years old. He was autistic. Maybe he didn't go out and play with kids the way he used to. Not many 15-year-olds are still riding bikes around and, you know, so she speaks to the neighbors. Nobody ever saw them.
Him come out was when he was playing with the dogs. The dogs would get out and, you know, he'd be out there for a little while, but nobody ever really knew him.
So that changes because she says when he's playing with the dogs, but that changes. So just hold on to that. But nobody ever really knew him. Are we supposed to know our 15-year-old neighbor kid? They just moved there not long ago, right? Right. He'd rather be inside. A lot of kids are like that.
Nobody knew any of them.
He never came out to play with neighborhood kids. You never saw him out riding his bike. I mean, now I'll tell you this. I mean, we have neighbors that go out, like I said, and walk their dogs every single day, sometimes even twice a day. You have kids that will go out and play basketball. We have a basketball goal in one of the cul-de-sacs. Kids will come up and play basketball in the basketball goal. They'll walk, ride their bike. We have a
okay, but you're talking about like these younger kids. We're talking about a 15-year-old child. Like, I don't.
One kid that has a four-wheeler and a dirt bike, and he rides.
The one kid, little Bobby down there, that has a four-wheeler and a dirt bike. Like, they know everything about everybody. She could probably tell us what color bikes these kids are riding too. She knows exactly where the one basketball net is. Like, holy hell, lady.
Around that kind of thing. Didn't even know Sebastian existed.
Didn't even know Sebastian existed.
Never played with anybody.
No friend.
15-year-old kids don't play. They don't play. Sorry. Right. I'm with you, Lanike. I got my son a really nice bike last year and hopes he'd go ride his bike. And kids don't, I'm sorry, my kid's 12 years old. He's not really, so I imagine a 15-year-old isn't doing it either. Right. He was a homebody. That's okay. 15-year-old autistic child. He liked to play his video games. He did chores. He's not going to be outside playing with the neighborhood little toddlers. I mean,
Friends, nothing.
Never had any friends over their house.
Never had any friends over their house.
Yeah. How long was, because I heard that Seth was there for a few days staying with the Proudfoots. Did you hear that?
I did. Well, I saw his, I didn't know he was staying in their house, but
You know everything. You know that they never had any friends over. They never had any guests. I mean, do you really know all of this? But that at least debunks what the other neighbor, remember the fake neighbor that came out with the whole, he was sprayed with the hose thing? Remember that? Right, Benny. So I'm not alone in this. Okay. I'm not alone in this. I try to bribe mine. Right. Does that make me a bad parent? Right. I mean, I got the basketball court, all the things. All right. So anyway, the fake neighbor. Right? The fake neighbor. That debunks what they said, because they said at the neighborhood barbecue that, Chris wasn't welcomed and all these things. So we know that's not true because nobody even knew about them. Huh. Okay. Thanks for debunking that, Bobby.
Saw his truck there every single day for, when I heard that he had stayed in their house for 3 days, I was shocked. I didn't realize he had actually stayed in the house. And then they said 3 days. I'm like, well, that's odd, because his truck was parked on the curb of the street for about a week. But I didn't know he was actually there because he was out searching. Like, he was actually at the command center for the first week every day, all day.
Well, then you know that he wasn't there. I mean, so what? He was sleeping at the command center? Okay.
Long.
Was.
Okay.
Seth was.
Not Chris and Katie. Chris and Katie?
Oh, no. No.
Oh, no.
They never left their house.
Never.
Not that
Never
I'm
went.
aware of.
They never left their house. I thought the rumor was they immediately left their house. Seth was kicked out of the command center the first day. Why? Really, Naomi? Where'd you hear that?
Have any flyers, go to door, to speak with neighbors, ask them if they've seen anything? Nothing.
Look.
No.
She says no, right? Very adamantly says no. But we're going to hear two stories. We're going to hear one where Katie's neighbor approached Katie and asked her what was going on, and Katie told her about Sebastian. And then we're going to hear another story about Chris. Right. And how does she know? Was she following them around? Was one of them staring at Katie's house and the other one was following around Seth? How does she know?
Wow.
Nope.
That is so Miss Bobby. So do you?
And the only.
Go ahead.
I don't know.
I was just going to say the only thing that they even put on Facebook was that one post,
which eventually got deleted.
Theirs didn't. The original neighbor that was asking, "Hey, what's all the commotion on Stafford?" That person deleted their post.
That's what I
gotcha.
said.
Katie's is still up there.
Were the Bowerstocks around at all during that week? Yeah, I know you said that they were there that morning. Did they look around? Did they look around?
Look, she doesn't know the answer, because if she did, she wouldn't have to think that hard about it. She doesn't know the answer. Just say you don't know. Don't tell us what the neighbor told the neighbor told the neighbor. Say you don't know.
No, we never saw anybody.
Oh, now we never saw anybody. But right before this, you tell everybody they showed up to the visual. I mean, come, which one is it? She kind of does, contradicts herself just a little bit.
None of them ever looked in our neighborhood where I'm at. I never seen any of them walking around at all.
So because Miss Nosy Bobby never saw them, that means nobody saw them.
All period ever. Seth, Chris, Katie, Bowerstocks, none of them ever.
Isn't that weird? Didn't she just tell us that Seth was out looking every day for the first week? Now she's saying nobody saw them at all. Anybody else catch that? Put a 1 in the chat if you caught that. Let's rewind that.
Neighborhood where I'm at, I never seen any of them walking around at all, period ever. Seth, Chris, Katie, Bowerstocks, none of them ever. I never even met them. I had one encounter with Chris one night.
I never even met them, but you just said that Seth was out searching the first week. She just said that, right? Now she's saying none of them. Okay.
Right.
Listen to this
and
interaction.
after, I never saw him, never met him, nothing.
The Chris encounter, you mind sharing? I think we talked about this offline a little bit.
Yeah, do you want to say it publicly? About your encounter with Chris? Listen to this encounter.
Yes, okay, so I'll kind of share a little bit of that. This was what day was it? Thursday, I think it was. I think it was Thursday, that Thursday night. Now, mind you, our neighborhood is on pins and needles. Don't know what happened to this kid.
She was casual art. She was angry about it. Yet they did send relatives there in placement of them to show their respect and to have somebody there to represent them. Seth Rogers, on the other hand, where was his family? Where was he at? Nobody blinks an eye to the fact that he didn't show up either.
Don't understand. Law enforcement's, coming up and around. We've got every department that I didn't even know existed. Like I said, I didn't even know we had a SWAT team. I didn't know we had drone footage. I didn't know we had any of this stuff.
Damn, how'd they keep all that from you, Miss? I run the neighborhood watch. Woo.
I mean, we're a small county. I had no idea. Not a small county, but you know what I mean? Like, we're away from like the big crowd, the city. Never had any issues. So I didn't even know that any of this stuff existed. So we were all kind of on pins and needles. And so anything weird, let me go back a little bit and say the night before this is the reason why this happened. The night before this, I had went to work that night. I think I did something. I wasn't home for some reason. My son was on our back deck. Now our back deck faces the construction, the top, the back of the construction. And so he was on the back deck talking to somebody, and he looks out and he says, "Well, that's really weird." And she said, "What?" And he said, "Look."
Who was he and she? Who was he and she in this story? The question was, what was your interaction with Chris? Now you're giving us something about a back deck facing construction and he and she. What are you saying?
Look at the light out there. And there was a flashlight. It was kind of a dim flashlight, but you could see it because it's pitch black dark. And he said, "Why is there a flashlight over there?" It was one single flashlight, and it was like walking in the back, kind of over.
Meanwhile, there's a missing child in the home. Why was there a flashlight back there? Oh, I don't know. Maybe they're searching for a missing child
in the back of the woods area, and it like walked around, stopped, walked around a little bit, stopped, and then just disappeared in the back of the woods. And so he called me, and he's like, "What do I do?" And I said, "You need to call law enforcement. Like, call the number." We had a flyer, had one of those flyers, and I was like, "You need to call the TBI and tell them and figure out what to do with that." He did,
That's
and
what
nothing.
I figured
no phone call.
I figure Candace gets very emotional.
Call back, no, nothing, just, "Okay, thanks for the letter." I'm like, okay, that's awfully weird. I mean, you would think that they would come check that out or call you back and ask you.
No. Let's get this straight for everybody in the chat. And once you hear me, I want you to put an emoji in the chat, preferably a green heart for Sebastian. If you call TBI, do not expect a phone call back. This isn't an episode of Law and Order. This isn't, TBI doesn't have time to call back every, tip they're given. You do not get a phone call back. There is nothing weird about it. You don't get a phone call back. Okay. Does everybody understand that? Do not call TBI and expect them to call you back and let you know if your tip led to anything, because they don't do that. Nosy bodies. Does anyone understand the concept of privacy? No, they don't. They don't. Lots of green hearts. Thank you. We are calling because we want to help find Sebastian, not because we want gossip if what we know is right. Okay? Thank you. When there's a missing child, Josie Joe. When there's a missing child. You think, is it so bizarre?
I'm
glad everybody.
Yeah, follow-ups.
JL,
nothing. No, they didn't even call him back to ask him, like, exactly where are you? What did you see? Nothing. Nobody.
Your son didn't give all that information, like where he was and what he saw when he called. He needs to be a phone call back to give them the information. Right. It's not customer service. Your son should have called and said, I'm at this address. I'm looking into the construction site behind me, and there's a flashlight, blah, blah, blah. That's it.
Nobody ever followed up or nothing. And so he was like, that's really weird. And I was like, yeah, that is weird. I mean, with the missing kid, you would think they would be coming flying up here to figure out who that was. So it was the following night. So now, of course, we're all like.
And what date are we on, Bobby? What date are we on? This is so jumbled.
Even more impedance than he was like, is people just going to just start walking around a neighborhood in the middle of the night like they're pitch black dark in the night?
Oh, exactly. Maybe because it was the police. Could be.
And so he was coming home. We were all at home and still looking around and talking to neighbors and figuring out like what the heck is going on.
Bobby is definitely part of the crew. She's definitely a narrative pusher. Good morning, Air Force. How would she know anything about the Bauer Sox? Right. Thank you so much, Cheese. Hey, Monkey Mar. Our flashlight's illegal now. Bobby still, I love the new.
And he comes home and walks in the door and is like, Mom, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, now what? And he said, there's two people, a real tall, skinny guy and a real small, it looks like a girl maybe, that is walking up our street.
Now, Mom, there's people walking up the street. What do I do? What? Okay.
Now, we do have families that will come out and walk their dogs at night before they go to bed.
I thought nobody was walking. What date are we on, ma'am? I thought nobody's walking. Everybody's locked down. Everybody's scared. Nobody's leaving their houses. And now it's weird. You said the neighborhood's active. There's kids playing, people walking dogs. Now it's weird that people are walking. I don't understand what's going on here.
But they had no dog with them, no nothing. And the strangest part about this,
they had no dog with them walking at the street at nighttime. Wow. How dare they? Who are they?
Was this guy was wearing dark, black, wide, like ski goggles.
Like night vision during a missing child search? Oh, wow.
You've been in my neighborhood. It is, you can't see your hand in front of your face. It is.
Thank you for clarifying that, Bobby. So if Sebastian walked out the door at nighttime, cameras would not catch him because it's so dark that you wouldn't be able to see anything, right? Right? So you're clarifying that. Cameras would not be able to see it because it's so dark you can't even see right in front of your face. So we can check that rumor off the. That's why Sebastian wasn't seen on cameras. You can't see in front of your face. Good morning, Ryan Apple. No dog. How dare they?
So dark at night. It was 9 o'clock at night. Why is somebody walking with these big black goggles? How can they even see? Well, with everything.
Well, okay. Didn't people go around with night vision goggles and record to show what the neighborhood looks like at night? Couldn't it have just been that?
Going on, I'm thinking, okay, that's very suspicious. I gotta check on that. Yes, I could have called law enforcement, and that's what was said. You should have called law enforcement. However,
but you didn't, right? You didn't.
I didn't want to call law enforcement on my own neighbor. If it was a neighbor out walking around, I didn't want to be rude and call law enforcement on my neighbor.
So why share this story then if there's nothing, if it was just a neighbor? What happens?
So I told my son, I said, you know what, let's go. He's got a Jeep that's got a bunch of lights on it.
This lady and her sons, with utmost no disrespect to them, but they were full blown playing a game of Clue, right? Like they're out here. They are so deep in this investigation that they are like side-eyeing neighbors and shit. Like they are like full-blown like investigators at this point.
And I said, let's drive down there and turn your lights on and see if you can see somebody out there walking. I said, I'll call law enforcement and let them know what we're seeing, and then we'll just turn around and go back home. I wasn't going to follow them. I just wanted to see if I could find them.
Wait, what? So they walked past, and your son gets in his car with all the lights in his Jeep with all the lights, and you go hunt down these neighbors?
So we're driving down my road. We turn up Stafford because we couldn't find them. Like, well, maybe they went up Stafford. We went up Stafford. Now my son's Jeep is loud. And so but I didn't even think about it. I was more focused on who this person was. So he drives up Stafford and he says to me, hey, while we're up here, where's Sebastian's house? And I'm like, oh, we just passed it. So he turns around.
So I want everybody to remember this. At this point, it's so dark and it's so weird that neighbors are walking, okay? Follow me here. So Bobby here and her son, as well as another teenager, jump in their car. They jump in their Jeep. They put on all the blasting lights of the Jeep. And they drive past the Proudfoot's house around 9, it's after 9 p.m., right? Because these neighbors vanished. So they just happen to go past the Proudfoots. They're going down the Proudfoot Street all of a sudden, okay? Let's see what happens next.
And goes back down, and we're going slowly because
this is her story to justify with no police report why she was stalking the Proudfoot's house this late at night. That's all it's me, Tiffany. That's it.
I was trying to point out Sebastian's house. And so I pointed it out, and he's like, oh, okay. And so we drive back around, and we're driving back down to the other side of the neighborhood.
Her son that followed the dogs and their scent trail and all that didn't even know where Sebastian lived. But was day one, boots on the ground with everybody, followed the dog walkers and everything. But at this point, doesn't even know where they live. So how did your son follow the dogs and their scent trails if he didn't even know where the Proudfoots lived?
Another cul-de-sac, and he said, wait a minute. Didn't you say that this other neighbor has a Ring camera? And I said, yes. And she's the one that saw the silhouette in the window and the lights in the house go on and off and whatever. She's like, but that's
not the story you gave us. You said Sebastian's bedroom light went off, Katie's bedroom light went off, and then you saw a silhouette. And I'll play that for you in a moment.
Doesn't make any sense, because if that house is located here, how can she have seen over here? And I'm like, okay, go back up the street and I'll show you.
So that's a very good question. How's your neighbor spying on a Proudfoot if she's in a completely diagonal location?
So we went back up the street to show him where that house was versus this and all the whole thing.
So now they went down to Proudfoot Street twice with their full-blown lights, and they're creeping by. Keep this all in mind. Keep all of this in mind.
And as we were coming back up, we kind of stopped. Now, this is my neighborhood.
So they stopped twice in front of the Proudfoot home in their Jeep with full-blown lights on, okay?
I'm not a suspicious person. This is my neighborhood. I should be able to do whatever I want to, right? So I stopped, or he...
Ma'am, you didn't know the Proudfoots, and the Proudfoots didn't know you, okay?
He stops a little bit. I'm pointing at our houses out, and we drive out, and I said, Sean, I said, honey, we got to go home. And he's like...
At this point, their 15-year-old son's missing, and this lady and her son and their Jeep full of people have driven by twice at least and stopped out front of their home. Twice.
Why? And I said, because somebody's standing at their front door. He was like, oh, crap. And so, and I did.
So now when they see somebody standing, Chris Proudfoot standing at his front door, they stop, and she tells her son, he stops, and she tells her son, we got to leave. This is now their third time on this block. Meanwhile, their 15-year-old son has disappeared. Okay? This car comes creeping by for the third time. I'm not bashing her, Amanda. I'm bashing her story. If you don't like it, then please don't be here. But I have every right to question this woman's story and why she would make this big dramatic backstory. Then instead of simply saying we went down their street 3 times and stopped in front of their home. At this point, Chris is a little suspicious of us. Their 15-year-old child's missing. We don't know this man. This man doesn't know us.
Did not. God honest truth. I never meant to upset anybody. It was truly just me trying to figure out what's going on. Never meant to upset anybody. turn around Stafford. I'm coming back down, and Chris is now, mind you, I've never met this man, never seen him before. I wouldn't even know who he is. Matter of fact, I thought he was law enforcement.
Well, this is weird. Thank you so much, Air Force. This is weird. Let's rewind this back. The neighbors spying on Katie's house. They met everybody at she's seen everybody out front of the house. Right? Now all of a sudden she couldn't even identify Chris to you. She couldn't even identify Chris to you.
Stands in the middle of the street and puts his hand out and stops, just like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, oh crap. And I'm thinking it's law enforcement. I'm like, oh crap, we're about to get in trouble because they're going to think that we're looking for this kid or something.
Because they're going to think you're suspicious because it's your third time now going down their street and stopping out front of their home while their child is missing. Okay.
So right on the window, and he comes around and
I want everybody to remember this all started because they saw two people walk down the street and they were trying to follow the people, but somehow they landed at the Proudfoot home 3 times in a row, stopping out front of their home. It's so dark you can't see in front of your hand, but she could see Chris up on his porch, right? Okay. So suspicious for people to be walking, but it's not suspicious for your Jeep to come down a cul-de-sac 3 times. All right.
stands there just like this. Just like,
Yeah.
what are you doing out here? And I'm like, holy crap. I said, I'm so sorry. We were looking for, and I told him what happened and told him the whole story. And he was like, why wouldn't you just call law enforcement? I said, because I don't want to call law enforcement on a neighbor. If they're out walking around, that's kind of rude.
Sounds like a weird story, right? So Chris is like, well, if this is all happening, why wouldn't you just call law enforcement? And now all of a sudden she doesn't want to call law enforcement on a neighbor, but you have a problem with the fact that Chris thinks you're suspicious? You saw 2 suspicious people walking, and instead of calling the cops, you followed them and just happened to land at the Proudfoots 3 times. Okay. I'm sorry. I think I have a reason to break down her story and try to make it make sense when she's certainly trying to make it like Chris was abusive in this moment.
And he's like, well, you have no business driving around here, and started telling me in a very
assertive tone,
intimidating, very strong voice.
It's called assertive tone. This man's 15-year-old child's missing, and you're snooping around his home for the 3rd time, ma'am. Thank you so much, my cat's name. Thank you.
Police, I guess you would say, big tough, he's a big guy, kind of thing. That my son is missing, and they've got police all around here looking. I said, yeah, no kidding. I know, I'm aware.
Well, you know why he's telling you his son's missing? There's police all around looking, because you're telling Chris Proudfoot that you're stalking down 2 random weird people that are walking. So Chris is telling you, we don't need you to play law enforcement, ma'am. Law enforcement is around here. Right? Anybody else feel like that's what Chris is saying? Or I don't know. That's what I'd be saying. I don't need you to play detective and come past my house 3 times with your bright lights. The cops are out here. If they see something suspicious, the cops will handle it. We don't need you to handle it.
I'm talking to him. Trust me, I know. I get it. And then he said, there's a police. What do you, the heat sensor mobile unit things. You know what I'm talking about? That can detect heat sensor and stuff.
He's probably telling you that's why the person was wearing goggles, because they're looking for heat sensory. But okay, Bobby.
Well, they had one of those up in the top, hoping that if he came home, it would alert law enforcement that there was somebody walking around, which I don't get that, because you've got families that are walking dogs anyway.
You got families walking dogs 9 p.m. when it's dark. Then why are you so suspicious of the people that are walking? You said you can't even see your hand in front of your face. There's no reason for people to be walking. But now you don't understand why they would have the heat sensory to find people walking? Okay, Bobby.
So anyway, so I was like, I'm so sorry. I kept apologizing to him, and he got really upset and, kind of said some things, and I was trying to calm him down. I apologize. And
upset and saying what things? Elaborate. Because what I'm hearing so far is Chris Proudfoot's telling you, let the police handle everything. That's all.
My son's girlfriend was in the back, and she thought that if she rolled the window down and said, I am such and such, and I go to your son's school, that he would calm down. Even
okay, let's listen to this part.
No, I said, hey, I'm your neighbor. I live up there. Everything's fine. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you. I thought even me telling him I was his neighbor would calm him down.
Really? You think just because you're a neighbor snooping by their house 3 times in a row, and when it's dark out, would calm him down? How does he know you're really a neighbor, Bobby?
It's like he just glossed right over that. He didn't care.
Hey, I wouldn't care either. I don't give a shit you're my neighbor. Why are you coming down my street 3 times to stop in front of my house with your bright lights on your Jeep with a car full of kids, ma'am? My son's missing.
So she says, I'm such and such, and I go to school with your son. And he stops mid-sentence to me and said, oh, and got like stopped, looked at her and said, you're.
No, Bobby, you just said he stopped and looked at you, right? Let's rewind that, Bobby.
Mid-sentence to me, and I go to school with your son. And he stops mid-sentence to me and said,
so she's saying, my name's so-and-so, and I go to school with your son, and he stops mid-sentence to her. Now he's looking at you, the adult, right? Okay.
oh, and got like stopped, looked at her and said, your name? And she said, yes, sir. Like, how
So now he's back to looking at her. Okay.
do you know? She only gave him her first name, and he said the whole thing.
No, how surprised are you that when somebody has a Facebook group that is disparaging you, if you click their photo, you see not only their photo, but you also see their first and last name. Wow, Chris Proudfoot was able to figure that out.
And she was like, how do you know my name? And I was like, what the crap? I looked at my son. I said, we need to go. We just need to go. We just need to go.
We need to go, son. This is so scary. This guy knows her name, but she runs a Facebook group where they've been disparaging my wife. Oh, we got to go. Oh, there's not enough thumbs up. Let's hit the thumbs up if you all hope that you have a neighbor like Bobby. Or I should say, if you hope you don't. Hit the thumbs up. Was owed a favor. It exactly fits his narrative. Did you say she knows Seth? Is this a favor to JLR from Seth? If not, something is roll off with this. I don't know if JLR would do a favor for Seth, but I do feel like something's off with this. And if we get the thumbs up a little bit higher, we'll continue. Bobby and Terry Lynn went to high school together. I know. I had somebody screaming at me and Jay's chat that they went to school together. And I'm like, so what? Like, that justified her speaking to creators behind the scenes. She didn't go to school with JLR. She didn't go to school with Trevor Lee. Sorry. I went to school with plenty of people. You're now in your mid or late 40s. I don't think it matters that you went to school with somebody. Opal, thank you so much. I don't get alerts on this phone for that. Thank you. I really appreciate you. Thank you, Opal.
And I'm like, I'm going to call the police because this is getting, I don't know. I don't understand. I wish you could have, I can't describe.
So now she's going to call the police. Give me 1 second. Now she's going to call the police. She's not going to call when the two shady people are walking down the street in the middle of the night wearing, fucking goggles. But she's going to call now because Chris Proudfoot dare say to her, why are you snooping past my house for the 3rd time in a row when my 15-year-old child is missing? Do you know that our child's missing, ma'am? Do you know that there's police all over this neighborhood, ma'am? Why are you snooping by? Okay.
His body language was just very
assertive.
It wasn't like, well, for that people were out there looking for his son or thinking it was more like trying to stop.
Get off my street. Get off my street.
Right. I would have said the same things the 3rd time you drove down my street and stopped in front of my house. So she leaves out the part that the admin group that her son's girlfriend, notice how they're all tied together and being nosies? The son's girlfriend runs is a group where they were disparaging Katie. So that is why Chris Proudfoot got angry, knowing that the lady that runs the group that's been disparaging them is sitting out front of his house for the 3rd time in the row that night, 9 p.m. so dark you can't see in front of your face. I wouldn't want you in front of my house either. Put a 1 in the chat if you would have felt like Chris. Put a 2 if you think Chris was an asshole. I personally understand where Chris was coming from when you break it down that way. Totally get it. I don't want you there either. She don't tell all of that though. She tries to make it like Chris was being some like aggressive jerk and context. Imagine that. I mean, again, she's saying it's pitch black, but yet she jumps in her son's Jeep that has all these lights to follow these strange people that were walking, but you just so happen to stop in front of Proudfoot's house 3 times that night. And on the 3rd time, Chris comes out and asks you what you're doing. Then he finds out that you're the nosy neighbor with the admin of the group in the back seat. So it gets better because what Chris says next.
Get out of here, get off my street, go home, leave me alone, get away from us. But he told her that, so you're the girl that runs this Facebook group and this, that, the other. I'm going to demand you take that off. You get your phone. And he said, where are your parents?
Stern body language. So here we hear that Chris says to this teenager, right? Because this young girl has to be young because she goes to school with Sebastian, so she has to be a high schooler. So Chris does the right thing, and instead of berating this teenager, he says, I want to speak to your parents. I think that's okay. I think that's the adult thing to do. I don't want to speak to you as a teenager who's allowing this slander against me and my family on your page. Where are your parents? I want to speak to your parents. Are they aware of what you're doing? Take it off the page. Sorry, I understand it.
I'm going to demand you take that off. You get your phone. And he said, where are your parents? And she said, at my house. And he said, well, I'm going to find out where you live and I'm going to come knock on their door and we're going to have a conversation.
Oh, no. He said that? I think that's okay. I think I understand that. I do.
And she said, okay, good luck with that. And I was like,
so she gives a smart ass response. But remember, at this point, these two are they're scared, guys. Chris comes down, he's all aggressive and scary. And, you know, this lady's telling her son, we got to go. But this smart ass teenager in the back that runs this Facebook group where they're being disparaged has a response of good luck with finding my parents. Good luck with that. Thank you, Norris. Because we also heard Bobby say nobody left that house, that nobody left for 2 weeks. At one point, she says the Proudfoots didn't come out of their house for X amount of time. I believe it was 2 weeks. I'd have to go back. I'd be upset if my daughter was running a neighborhood with a Karen like this, trying to track down suspicious people at night. But they're so scared. They're so scared of Chris in this moment that girl gets a smart ass attitude. That's how scary and intimidating he was. Okay.
You know what? Look, we don't want to, cause any issues and whatever. I try to give him grace. Don't know the man from nowhere.
Oh,
and I just kept saying, he's upset. His son's missing. He's really upset. He's very defensive. Maybe that's just all that what it was. Now that I've seen some of his YouTube videos and I'm like, yeah.
But yet I'm on here telling the whole world, but I'm so scared of this aggressive man who literally only one time threatened anything, which was to smack somebody in the face with a cease and desist. Okay. Okay, Bobby Sue.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know the back end of those details. I know we talked before offline a little bit and you said, kind of like a confrontation kind of deal. We confronted you guys, but I didn't know those like back end details that you shared. Somebody in the chat, Smiley's World, was asking.
Probably because she's full of crap, JLR. I mean, respectfully, there were times JLR agreed with her when he knew he shouldn't have. Like the whole TB, I didn't call you back. That's weird. No, it's not. It's not. This whole backstory to lead up to the fact that she went creeping past the Proudfoot home 3 times when it's so dark you can't see in front of your hands. But yeah, she saw Chris on the porch from a few houses down. They're slowing down, pointing out cameras and doing weird shit in a Jeep with all these lights on it. I'm sorry. I understand where Chris was coming from. Others may not, and I get that, but I do. I think it was weird.
Prior to the February 26th, right, when Chris arrived home, did any neighbors or anyone that you heard, whether you see it, but you said you never knew him prior, did anyone ever say anything about him being around the house on the 25th, 24th, or seen in the neighborhood or anywhere in the area? prior to the
No, nobody's ever really mentioned him. The only person that's ever said anything about him coming home, like I said, nobody really ever paid attention, I don't think, because even
Nobody ever really paid attention. But now that everybody, they know that nobody ever saw Sebastian. They didn't even know Sebastian lived there. But this woman's going to mention Faith as if she knows Chris Proudfoot's daughter. There's a lot of really weird things. Sorry.
the neighbor that lives close by that I'm friends with, I asked her, like, did you ever see? She said, I never really paid attention because, like, he would come and go and they never were out really, and they had this camper, and the camper would leave and then it would come back, and then, he never came outside. And it's odd because Seth.
So there she says Chris never came outside, right? They never really paid attention, never saw him, never came outside. But we're going to hear differently in just a minute. Again, imagine that.
Chris kept saying that he would go outside and play and, all that kind of stuff. And she's like, I don't remember ever seeing him really outside playing.
Didn't you just tell us a few minutes ago that Sebastian would be outside playing with the dogs? Put a 1 in the chat if you remember that. So far, within 20 minutes, we caught her in 2 inconsistencies and 1 very elaborated story that was actually quite simple and understandable when you break it down. But so on one hand, Sebastian would be outside playing with the dogs, but now this lady never saw him outside. Well, it's amazing. Wow. Okay. Lots of ones. So you guys heard that too. Okay.
Like, there's no playground. They don't have a playground outside. They don't have a trampoline outside.
He's 15, Karen. You want him to play on a swing set?
Like, if you looked at their yard, you wouldn't even know. There's no bike. There's no scooters. No. There's no basketballs. There is
okay, because he's 15. He wasn't into sports like that. What do you mean? That's weird to you? Oh my goodness. You're funny, Bobby. You were funny. I'll give you that. You're funny. No, with respect, cats and kittens, normal. Kids don't sit outside and play. Okay. Not at 15 years old. Now, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, they're outside playing. Maybe, but 15 years old, they don't have playgrounds. They don't have scooters. They're 15. They're not really, sorry. I don't think it's normal. It's actually a lot more so-called normal for kids to not be outside playing nowadays than it was then. Right. Deaf grits, 11 and 13 are with a trampoline. Mine has a big hole in it. I need to fix it. Oh, well, she said nobody ever saw. On one hand, she says several different things. Nobody even knew Sebastian existed. Now it turns to he would only be out there playing with the dogs. Now it's back to he was never outside playing. And then we're going to turn into another. So she gives several different answers to Sebastian.
You wouldn't even know they have kids. There's nothing in their yard to play with. He's never outside. Like, he didn't go outside and play catch with his dad. Nothing.
Interesting. Now, as you said, pitch black.
Now, what's funny about that is there are some creators on here that are going to tear that apart, but ask them the last time they went outside and played catch with their kids. Okay. Anyway, Sebastian wasn't into sports. Sorry. What does that mean? Exactly, Kaz. Exactly. But he's not outside playing in the yard. Exactly. You get it.
In the neighborhood. Do you buy it where they're claiming that this kid walked out the front door and kind of vanished in the neighborhood?
No. Because everybody around the camera.
Would a kid go out at night and walk around out there at night alone?
I don't think so. I mean, unless their parents didn't. Now, we did have a ding dong ditch happen a couple years ago.
Oh, Bobby remembers the ding dong ditch a couple years ago. Bless it, Bobby.
But no, I mean, I've never experienced kids just randomly walking around the neighborhood. That's the thing about our neighborhood is it's so quiet. Like at night, literally, like, in the summertime when my kids were younger. Sorry, my car shut off for me for something. My kids were younger. They would go outside and play like flashlight tag and stuff like that. And
yeah, guess what, Karen? When I was younger, sorry, Bobby. When I was younger, I'd go outside and play flashlight tag as well. But kids just don't play that type of games anymore. That's a shame, I know.
Now I have to get on to him like, okay, 10 o'clock, y'all need to be done because everybody's got to go to bed and whatever. Nobody ever gets like, you don't ever just see random kids walking around by themselves. I don't buy that at all. And I know that neighbors that are right around them said that there was nothing on their cameras.
Nothing. So no evidence whatsoever for that.
Nope, nothing on her cameras. Does anybody recall? Miss Bobby here just said you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. It was so dark. But yet she's so shocked with her eyes closed, shaking her head that no cameras caught Sebastian at nighttime. No ring cameras. But yet you can't even see your hand in front of your face. Her words.
That morning,
No.
26, and not even the 25th, the night of the 25th. Wow. Do you think law enforcement?
He just vanished. He literally just vanished.
He just vanished. Yeah.
What's your theory? What do you think? What do you think happened? What's your theory? Based off you being a neighbor, based off you speaking to other neighbors, you're very close to the area. You've seen law enforcement over there. What do you think happened?
That's right. She does say that, Gypsy. Let's get to that really quick. So she says that about the lights, right? You're so right. She sure does. Let me pull this up. All right. So let's play this. Ready? Oh boy, this lady. Bobby. Bless your heart, Bobby.
From Texas Roadhouse to the trash house and so forth. Sebastian was in his room. She was in the kitchen, I guess, getting, whatever done. And
so Sebastian's in his room and Katie's in the kitchen getting whatever done, right? Wait, let's rewind it a little bit. Go back a little bit, Bobby. Tell us what you got.
From another happened. And she said, and this is where put away or put in the, why is it still in the garage and not in the child's bedroom?
She wants to know about the mattress, but she doesn't know if he slept in the garage. They know everything else but that. But let's hear this. All right.
One summer, I'm just surprised that she would have a brain.
You spoke earlier about a silhouette and a light inside.
Oh, yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. Some people were asking that in the chat. What's that all about?
Okay, so if I go back to day one and kind of rehash a little bit, trying to make this as short as possible, the neighbor close by that saw Katie out front on the way to taking her kids to school, she was the one that called me. Friends, I'm good friends with her.
So we're gonna get to that, but remember, this lady's on the way to take her kids to school. Okay. If you want to have Bobby drive to your house, don't like it. If you don't, hit that like button. Go on, Plumie. Thank you.
She's the one that actually called me and told me what was going on.
Listen to
and
this.
Said that I said, well, what happened? And she said, well, I went and asked Katie what happened. And she said, and this is where the story gets totally misconstrued. I don't know.
So at least she admits it gets misconstrued. So this woman's on her way to drive her kids to school, asks Katie what's going on.
Again, third party, I'm hearing this from another third party source. So, I trust this lady. She's a good friend of mine. There's no reason why she would lie.
Mm-hmm.
But she said Katie, they had gotten home from Texas Roadhouse, took the trash out, so on and so forth.
So this lady who's in the car with her kids to take them to school stops and says to Katie, what's going on? And Katie says, we were at the Texas Roadhouse and my son took out the trash, right? On the way to school to a stranger, Katie's given all this information. We went to Texas Roadhouse and Sebastian was taking the trash out and come on, lady, come on.
Sebastian was in his room. She was in the kitchen, I guess, getting, whatever done. And
Sebastian was in his room. We went to the Texas Roadhouse. Sebastian took the trash out. I was in the kitchen getting stuff done and Sebastian was in his room. She told all this while she has her kids in the car to get them to school. She told, that's what she's telling a stranger that simply asked what's going on. Not that my son's missing, but she gave all these details. I don't know she's lying, but I'm pointing out a little bit of inconsistencies here, Mary Jane.
From her house, she's close enough to where she can see from the Ring camera, like the lights inside, because it's dark. So, if you have lights on, you can see it. And so she said that she could see the lights in the house around 10 or so. Then Katie told her that Sebastian was in her room. She was in the kitchen. She said, "You need to go to bed." And he said, "Okay."
She's telling all of this while out front the morning that her son disappeared, and a stranger stops to ask what happened. And this is all the information Katie gave. The roadhouse, the trash, I'm in the kitchen, he's in his room, I told him it's time to go to bed, and he says, okay. A conversation doesn't even go like this when you're in a rush to get your kids to school. When the kids are in the car, they're right. It doesn't even flow. It doesn't make sense. You're not telling a stranger all this. What you're going to say when everybody's gathered on the lawn and the police, and it's the morning of, you're going to say, my son's missing. That's it.
And she goes in the living room and does whatever, watches TV. She says she was studying. I don't know, whatever, doesn't matter. She was in the
So did Katie tell this woman I was in the living room watching TV and studying? Or did she tell her? I mean, she told all this to the strange lady in the morning of? Okay.
living room for whatever reason. And suppose she told my neighbor that she fell asleep.
I fell asleep.
And
Say that again. You broke up. Say it again. You broke up.
This thunk, and she yelled across the house and said, "Sebastian." And he said, "Yes, Mom." And she said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yes, I'm fine. I'm good. Go to bed." And she said, "Okay."
Again, this is all stuff we have heard since, but she wants us to believe on the very morning of that Katie stopped and had this whole detailed conversation of her night before and morning of with this stranger who asked what's going on.
So she gets up, and my neighbor said you can actually see his light go off, her walking across the house, her light go off, and then a silhouette come up to the window for a minute.
So take that in. This neighbor, this nosy neighbor, now suddenly we're going back over cameras. She sees Sebastian's bedroom light go off and then Katie's light go off. You can't even see Katie's bedroom from the front of the house. Ran in and tell her, and then she says her neighbor called to tell her. Very interesting. Well, her kids are adults, but the one's girlfriend's still in high school because she's the one that said, I go to school with Sebastian, but also runs the Facebook nosy group. So she's fitting right in with the family dynamic over here. All right. So she sees the lights and then a silhouette. You need light to see a silhouette, right? Let's rewind.
You can actually see his light go off, her walking across the house, her light go off, and then a silhouette come up to the window for a minute. And then everything just goes black.
What time was that again? Because you cut out.
I'm sorry. I know my son was calling me.
So then you see the silhouette go up to the window. Then it goes blank. What window? What window? Good morning, Supra. What window?
Okay, so she woke up around 11:30 is what she told my neighbor, that she woke up.
So she also tells the neighbor the morning of, the neighbor that has the kids in the car, the morning Sebastian disappears. She also tells the neighbor what time she woke up. What? Does this sound logical to any of you that this all took place while Katie's on the front lawn, and what Bobby already described to be hysterical, that she gives a full 24-hour itinerary to this stranger? What the crock? I hope you have a great day. Right, you wouldn't be able to see all of that.
She woke up around 11:30 is what she told my neighbor, that she woke up about 11:30, and apparently he was still up. But I find it odd because my thought is, and again, none of my business. I just think, okay, put yourself.
Now it's none of your business. Lady, you've made it all your business.
In that position. If I have a child who's got special needs and I hear a thump, I'm going to walk into my child. No, let me put it this way. My kids are all very healthy and normal. I'm very blessed to have
They're very healthy and normal. Her kids are very healthy and normal.
Healthy kids. But
your kids are also adults, ma'am, with girlfriends that own and run Facebook pages to gossip.
If it's 11 o'clock or 11:30 at night and my kid has to be up at 6 the next morning, I'm going to be in their room yelling at them and taking their electronics away and telling them, go to bed now.
Well, Bobby, you are mommy of the year, Bobby.
that I would be walking in my kids' room. Even where my kids are now, healthy and average children, whatever, no problems. If I had a
Healthy and average.
thunk, I'm probably still going to go in their room and ask, like, what in the world was that? I wouldn't just stay, but hey, maybe she trusted him. Maybe she thought it was no big deal. I don't know, whatever. But that's what she told my neighbor.
That's what she told your neighbor. I thought it was her neighbor. Now it's your neighbor? Whose neighbor is it? Was it Katie's neighbor that lives right there and got the Ring cameras pointed at Katie's house and checks what time Katie's car pulls into the garage? Or is it your neighbor who lives blocks away, ma'am? Which neighbor is it?
And then she goes to bed.
11:30 though.
Now remember, this is a neighbor who nobody ever knew Katie and Chris, but now Katie gave all this information to the stranger. The stranger.
Information is not really out there. We keep hearing 10 p.m. kind of deal. Put them to bed.
But
Hear the thump. Are you okay? Good night. 10 p.m.
Right.
But this is what she told a neighbor.
She told a neighbor that told Bobby's neighbor that told Bobby. Okay, Bobby. Exactly, Kathy. Me neither.
That's right. That's right. And when I asked my neighbor, so she told me this Monday. And then when the sheriff's office came by our house to do the same door knocking thing and walking around and whatever.
So the neighbor tells her this on Monday, but the sheriffs don't come until the following day. But yeah, we know by listening to dispatch that they did all that the day of. Thank you so much, Southern Gale. She does contradict herself a lot. She does. She does.
I asked the sheriff, I said, let me ask you a question. And he's like, what's that? And I said, I know early on investigation, they actually were talking to us. Like day 1 and 2, they were talking to us.
So now she's saying it wasn't day 1 or day 2 that they came to door. What early on in investigation, but now you're asking the police. So how far, what is this date? What date are we on? I'm so confused. Let's rewind this a little bit because I'm really lost on this timeline now.
I asked the sheriff to do, so she told, that's right. That's right. And when I asked my neighbor, so she told me this Monday. And then when the sheriff's office came by our house to do the same door knocking thing and walking around and whatever, I asked the sheriff, I said, let me ask you a question. And he's like, what's that? And I said, I know early on investigation, they actually were talking to us. Like day 1 and 2, they were talking to us. So they were giving us information. They were telling us kind of what they were going and doing, whatever. And then after about a week of it, they just shut down and never would talk again. The day that the TBI came in, that was it. No more discussion. It shut down. We're not talking about it.
But yet they're knocking on your door right now and you're asking them questions. So where are we in the timeline?
Just going to have to be in the dark. So, but this day 2, when the sheriff's office came in.
All right. Wait a minute.
No, I'm sorry. The state troopers came in. Still don't know why state troopers got there. Haven't figured that one out yet. I don't know why state troopers would be there. But state troopers came.
She hasn't figured that out yet, guys. She's still working on that one.
They came into my driveway because.
Okay, so now you just contradicted yourself again. Listen to this again, guys. Okay? Listen in ears. You just contradicted yourself again.
Day 1 and 2, they were talking to us. So they were.
Day 1 and 2, they were talking to us. Right?
I asked the sheriff's house to call. So she told me this Monday. And then when the sheriff's office came by our house to do the same door knocking thing and walking around and whatever, I asked the sheriff, I said, let me ask you a question. And he's like, what's that? And I said, I know early on investigation, they actually were talking to us. Like day 1 and 2, they were.
So day 1 and 2, they were talking to us, right? Now, if we go up to here where we just were
talking to us. So they were giving us information. They were telling us kind of what they were going and doing, whatever. And then after about a week of it, they just shut down and never would talk again.
So day 1 and 2, they were talking to him, but after a week of it, they would never talk to him again. But now the sheriff's back at her door.
The day that the TBI came in, that was it. State troopers came in when the sheriff's office came in. No, I'm sorry. The state troopers came in. Still don't know why state troopers got there. Haven't figured that one out yet. I don't know why state troopers would be there. But state troopers came. Actually, they came into my driveway because they were rinsing their shoes off. They had gone into came in out yet. No, I'm sorry. The state troopers came in to down. We're not talking about it. You're just going to have to be in the dark. So, but this day 2, when the sheriff's office came in.
So day 2, the sheriff office comes in, right? So she just said on day 1 and 2, can I ask you something? On day 1 and 2, they were very talking with us. After a week, they weren't. But on day 2, when the sheriff's office came in, they're in my driveway. So now we're back to day 2.
No, I'm sorry. The state troopers came in. Still don't know why state troopers got there. Haven't figured that one out yet. I don't know why state troopers would be there. But state troopers came in. Actually, they came into my driveway because they were rinsing their shoes off. They had gone into the construction area and his boots were all muddy.
So on day 2, the sheriff's office pulls into her driveway to rinse off their boots. But a few seconds ago on day 1 and 2, they were very open and I'm very confused. I don't have enough coffee either. I don't know what's going on.
And so he and my son were rinsing his shoes off. And I looked at him and I said, let me ask you a question. He's like, what's that? And I said,
so on day 2, she asked the sheriff a question. And the question is, how come early on in the investigation on day 1 and 2, they were very open with us. But on day 2, I'm asking them why they're not being open with us. Is anybody else picking up on this with me? Put a 1 in the chat. I feel like I'm going to, I don't even know if I'm expressing it correctly because I don't fully understand it myself. But she definitely did just contradict herself, right? Like you just said, day 1 and 2, they were open with us, but now we're back on day 2, and you're asking the sheriff a question. What the hell is going on? I'm so confused here. All right, I'm confused, but you guys understand what I'm saying. All right, because I'm getting really confused. All right. Whew.
If you'd fallen asleep in the living room and your kid walks out the front door, wouldn't you?
This is what she's asking the trooper, guys. It's an Amber Alert, lady. This is what she's asking the trooper. Because it's the gossip game, right? Thank you so much, 2 Old Cruz. All right.
You have heard that? And he was like, not only would I have heard that, walks out the front door. If you'd fallen asleep in the living room and
man, you just told us that your neighbor saw Katie's light go off and now she's asleep in the living room. Then why did she turn her bedroom light off? How did she turn off her bedroom light if she was asleep in the living room? What is she talking about? What are you talking about?
Your kid walks out the front door. Wouldn't you have heard that? And he was like, not only would I have heard that, but I would have jumped up with my gun in my hand to figure out who's coming in my house.
Oh, that trooper would have woken up. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing is, like, she falls asleep on the couch and her kid just walks at the door.
This woman is playing a game of Clue based off rumors, speculation, and whatever gossip she's getting out of her Facebook groups. Because we went to day 1, now day 2, now we're back a week, and now we're back to day 2, and she's asking a trooper, and Katie fell asleep in the living room, but yet Katie's bedroom light went off. What is going on? Well, we played where Seth himself said that he didn't see Sebastian for 3 weeks prior to his disappearance. I played it here, so we definitely heard it.
But then when I asked my neighbor about that again, called her the next day, I'm like, okay, explain this to me.
So now you asked the neighbor about it again? The neighbor that didn't even know the Proudfoots existed now knows where Katie fell asleep? Oh gosh, Bobby.
This is what you said. I don't understand that. And she said, oh, well, she woke up and then heard the thump and that kind of thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, it goes with all that in the evening time.
No, it goes with nothing because it really made no damn sense. None of it made sense.
At the same time, like you said, no evidence that any neighbors or anyone seen that he actually returned home that day. And then we also have that those lights. It's just a mystery in a sense because those mysteries. Someone asked it. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say those were not trash trucks.
I concur. But why did authorities say it doesn't have any evidentiary value?
I know, Damaged. I know.
I asked that when I called the lead detective and
how many times do you guys think Bobby called the detectives seeking answers? I mean, she's asking the troopers questions. She's calling the detective. I mean, which one are we on? Some of this confirming information has been speculation. Exactly, Brianna. None of this makes sense to me. I'm sorry. Bobby wants the answer. She feels entitled.
I asked that when I called the lead detective, and I flat out told him that I know the neighbor. I've seen the video footage from the very beginning before it was edited. She told me with her own mouth, looking at it herself, there are 2 separate occasions, car, then truck. Why is that? We've had it. He argued with me and told me that he had it broken down. The Secret Service looked at it and they confirmed that in fact it was a trash truck. And I said,
So now the lead investigator saying, listen, the Secret Service looked over this footage, ma'am. It is a trash truck. But Bobby here, she knows what every neighbor threw away in the trash that night, let alone what time the trash trucks came. So she's going to argue with the FBI and the lead investigators and everything. All right.
I'm telling you, it was not.
She's going to tell the police.
He said, well, I'm not going to say I'll argue with you. I was like, okay.
Wow. Somebody said in the chat,
Bobby's now telling Secret Service and Ellie that it wasn't a trash truck. She knows better than the lead investigator.
video footage of Katie searching for Sebastian that morning? Like, do they have any, since you have a neighbor that has a Ring camera, did any cameras pick up Katie actually out there searching that morning before?
If she, oh, you mean before all the police got there?
Yeah.
So the neighbor that was leaving to go take her well, actually the neighbor's camera did pick up her walking around her house.
Really? So she walked around her house?
Yeah, because in the neighbor, if you're looking to her house, the neighbor to the left of them, that the wife came out and was actually looking there's like a little like a
now listen to all of this. What is going on?
wood door underneath the house. What do you call that underneath the house?
Jesus, Bobby. Take a chill pill, sweetheart.
The crawl space. They actually opened up that door and were looking in the crawl space together. And so they were.
Listen, if you don't hit the thumbs up, you're going to get a neighbor like Bobby, okay? Literally, you have 10 seconds, hit the thumbs up before your neighbor becomes a Bobby. You want the neighbors to know that you have an Uber picking you up, take you to the airport, and what date you'll be back, then don't hit the thumbs up. But I'm telling you, there's a Bobby watching you right now if you don't hit it. Lord have mercy. Or you might get a Tony Baloney.
Looking, but as far as outside of the neighborhood, I've never seen them. And they've never, no. And as far as we're looking in the crawl space together. And so they were looking, but as far as outside of the neighborhood, I've never seen them.
So Bobby's never seen them looking outside the neighborhood. I have a feeling, Bobby, you don't leave the neighborhood because you might miss the gossip of the day, okay? That's just my feeling, Bobby. But because Bobby's never seen them looking outside the neighborhood, that means they've never looked. Bobby also claims they didn't leave their house for 2 weeks, but then others were saying they left on day 2. And, so Bobby's just really, she's gotten it all, man. I'm a nosy neighbor too. I mean, my blinds have an indent, but I don't know all of this shit. This woman knows everything. Everything. Revival said, I don't want a Bobby. All right. I mean, Bobbies are good. I do appreciate Bobbies to an extent. Like I said, if I'm getting my hair cut, I like sitting next to the Bobby so I get to hear all the gossip but not really be part of the gossip crew. But it gets better. Wait till you hear what Bobby tells you next.
And they've never, no, not that I'm aware of. I mean, I asked my kids, and my kids said they had never seen her, never seen him.
Bobby's kids are little Bobby Juniors in the making. They followed around the dog searchers all day, and
they did see Seth was out there a couple of times with everybody. He was at the command post. I have a good friend.
Now, don't forget, she told us that none of the family, not Seth, not the Bowersocks, not the Proudfoots, were searching for Sebastian. But now she's telling us differently again. This is another, you're telling us differently, Bobby.
That was there in the command post, and she confirmed that he was at the command post. But I asked her, I said, did you see Katie or Chris or the Bowersocks? And she said, no, never saw any of them. But then again, she said, but I mean, law enforcement did ask them to stay home in case he came home or called.
So law enforcement did ask them to stay home. Okay. But then again, don't forget, At one point, nobody even knew the Proudfoots even existed. They didn't even know the old neighbor sold the house. Okay.
So there's that.
So there's that.
Do you think law enforcement exhausted the whole area? Like, do you think they did a thorough search?
Now, let me pull up a certain part. I want you all to hear this next from Bobby. Bobby got the scoop on everything. Bobby. All right. All right. I'm going to play from here. Now, you all listen to this.
Actually a part of Hendersonville Police, and then the other two are from other counties.
Lauren,
They
I'm so
came
excited for Eva.
to the vigil. And matter of fact, the one that is part of Hendersonville has been in a neighborhood since almost the beginning. Know them very well. Good people. And
You know what they say about people that overly insert themselves into investigations? The police suspect them.
And he was down there with a flashlight because we had so many people driving up and down and around and circling flashlight. Know them very well. Good. Hendersonville has been in a neighborhood since almost the beginning. Know them very well. Good people. And he was down there with a flashlight because we had so many people driving.
So she does know that somebody was down in there with a flashlight. Could that have been the flashlight that led you out front of the Proudfoot's house 3 times in one night? Maybe.
Up and down and around and circling and going up and down and circling and coming back and forth. And we're just like, good grief. The Proudfoot sent, I don't know who it was.
What does all the traffic have to do with any of what she just said? But it does prove that the neighbors were annoyed with the traffic. They were annoyed. I love Fleetwood Mac. Got to see them in concert with my mom. We had a blast. She turned me on to the good music.
But they came down and we were all introducing ourselves, and they introduced themselves as aunt and uncle.
The Proudfoots?
Don't have a
aunt and uncle?
Proudfoots. Apparently, I don't know if it was Chris's.
What? Sebastian had an aunt and uncle? But all right. So they don't go to the visual, but they do send people there for them. She does contradict. One's about to come up. That's why I went back this far.
Somebody's brother, or that's what they introduced themselves as. We are, maybe it was Sebastian's aunt and uncle.
You know, Bobby got the whole family tree right now. I bet you Bobby, right next to her computer, has a giant blackboard or whiteboard with the family tree, the neighbors, their DNA, all the details of the town, all the details.
Chris and
Maybe
Katie
that's
said,
what it was.
Chris and Katie said they were their aunt and uncle.
Well, it wasn't. Chris and Katie didn't come. They sent family members, and when they introduced themselves as we're aunts and uncles.
Why
So I
didn't
guess
Chris,
Sebastian's aunt and uncle.
why didn't Chris? Did Seth go?
Nope.
No.
So no Seth, no Seth, no Proudfoots. They basically sent their own representatives, family members that claim
Yes.
they were aunt.
That's correct. Yes.
I got 2 questions back on the first day. When do you know that Chris arrived home?
I did not, because I didn't know. I had never met them. They moved in.
Listen to what she says here. Listen to what Bobby says here, okay? This is important. Everything else we just heard, this is important.
And nobody knew them. Like, I still don't know anybody that really knows them. Like,
So nobody knew them. They moved in and nobody knew them. But yet the neighbor knows what time Katie got home, the lights going out. The neighbor that Katie gave, 24-hour breakdown of her day to a stranger.
like nobody ever really knew them. And so
when did they move in? Do you know?
I think, well,
Me
so
too.
apparently it was a year and a half ago.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and they just stayed to themselves, and nobody really even knew them. I didn't even know that the original owners sold their house, and not because
Bobby didn't even know the original neighbor sold them their house. How dare they not tell you, Bobby? You're the leader of the town watch. Nobody told you they moved, but it gets very interesting in just a moment.
We don't, our neighborhood is just a real quiet neighborhood. Everybody kind of stays to themselves, except for, if you need something.
Except for you, Bobby. You certainly don't stay to yourself, ma'am. With respect, you do not.
Or if a dog, a pet gets out, or if somebody goes on vacation, hey, will you watch my house, that kind of thing. But we don't really, unfortunately, I think everybody's just have busy lives and stuff, and we just.
So you guys don't do neighborhood barbecues like the other so-called neighbor claimed? No, doesn't exist, right?
Don't know. I mean, like each neighbor knows the neighbor next to them. Like I know all the neighbors around me, and I know a lot of their original neighbors that were there from day one, but I don't know the ones that have moved in over the past 5 years.
Yet you're acting like it's strange that nobody knew the Proudfoots, and you're calling them your neighbor, but you're not really their neighbor.
And I think with COVID, that kind of messed everything up too.
Got you. Somebody put in the chat, what time does the trash get picked up in the morning?
Here we go.
That is the biggest misconception. Here we go with the whole light thing, right? This is where we're going. So
Bobby's excited to touch on this one. I can tell you what Ben down the street threw away in his trash, JLR. Go ahead and ask me.
One more thing first. The very first day, the dogs. You saw dogs out there. You saw.
Oh yes,
did you
absolutely.
See the dogs going a specific direction or area? Did you see them centered around a certain area, or did they pick up any scent?
Now listen to this, right? Because she had to drive down to Proudfoot's house 3 times in a row. The third time to show her son where they lived, where Sebastian lived, right? But listen to what she says here.
Okay, so there was no scent that was picked up from their house to anywhere.
How do you
However,
know that?
and my kids were with the handler and the canine, and actually.
So that's how she knows that, because her kids were actually with the canine and the handler. So she knows that no scent was found at their house because her kids were there. But yet you had to show your kids where the house was later on. But on day one, your kids were there with the handler. So they know no hit at the house because they were there. I mean, you contradict a lot. You do. She does. She contradicts herself a lot.
Actually watched. He followed them all through the construction zone. And one of my kids actually saw one of the dogs take the handler to one of the retention ponds. And not only did he go to the retention pond, he ran to it and jumped in it.
So her son watched the dog run to it and jump in it. Now watch, because she'll contradict herself in just a second.
And the handler had to go and get him and take him out of the water and then dry him off. And my son looked over the handler and said, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like that before." He looked at me and said, "He's never done that before." And my son said, "Why did he just jump in that?" He said he was following a scent. And then the other.
On that, did they go in the water? Did they stake scuba divers or anything in there?
Supposedly, when I told Seth that when I met him at the most recent vigil, he said they drained the pond twice and nothing. But not only did I see that, but
there it is. So she saw it now. It went from her son saw it, even saw the dog jump in, to now that she saw it, right? Okay, Bobby. You just told us it was your son, but now you saw it. All right. You guys are a little overly invested in this investigation. It's getting weird. You got the sons are with the handlers. You got her calling the lead investigator and arguing with the FBI and asking all the neighbors to get their footage. You got her son's girlfriend running the Facebook group that's disparaging the Proudfoots. It's getting a little weird, but okay. So her son saw it, but now she saw it.
And nothing. But not only did I see that, but when on day 3, I think it was Wednesday, when National Guard came through and they had their dogs. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They were all up and down through the neighborhood. That's why when everybody said, the police aren't doing enough, I have some of my own personal thoughts about that, but I will tell you right now, we had we had the Sumner County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, so what do you guys think? and went from her son seen it to she saw it. But that's what time. There's just been many inconsistencies. Is all. It's kind of as she's a little over the place, and I don't think Bobby means any harm. I just think that Bobby has mixed up after 3 months of being all up in this case and watching all the YouTube videos, and she's in all the groups and she's admin the groups and all that. I think she's just mixing up facts with feelings. I think she is spewing things as facts when they're really just gossip from these groups or from the neighbors. So now it gets really interesting, right? Hold on. Let me show you guys this. All right. So all right. So at the visual, they ask everybody, hey, do you guys need anything? They say, no, we've got a lot of support. And then we get good. Then Bobby tells us what Bobby's up to.
Hey, do you guys need anything? And we said, do you need food? Can we set up a food train for you? Or, is there, do you need anything? And they both said, oh, we've got a lot of support. We're good. We're fine. Don't worry about us. We're good. We got plenty of support.
Does the somebody asked in the chat, does the Proudfoots have security?
Blackhawk, I saw your comment, but I have to tell you that happened live. Nobody fabricated that. That actually took place. I think we spoke about in the beginning. I think that he went to the bathroom and didn't turn off his camera, but nobody manipulated that. That was not like manipulated. He lied.
Did the neighbor, did you guys know if they had, because Katie worked at Brinks, right? Or Brinks Security System?
That was the very first thing I asked my neighbor when she told me that Sebastian is on the spectrum.
So remember here, Bobby's very blessed because she has normal kids, right? So she thinks because Sebastian's on the spectrum that they had to have like cameras and babysit them and all the things. Let's see how accurate she is with her kid there, because there is video footage of Max. Surely we would have heard the kid or see people around, especially if he immediately asked, why did the dog do that? Good point, Gypsy. Good point.
And I said, hold on a minute. Doesn't she work for Brinks? And she said, yes. And
now, mind you, Bobby didn't even know the Proudfoots lived there. She didn't even know they existed. But the first thing she's saying to her neighbor is, wait a minute, didn't she work for Brinks? You said you didn't even know this family. Now you know where the lady works. Early on, this is being asked. Okay. All right.
I said, she has a special needs child. She works for Brinks. Does she not have security or locks or some kind of like a safety, something to keep him from coming out? And she said, not that I'm aware of. Now, the people before.
Now, Bobby, again, he's a 15-year-old child that was diagnosed last year. You're speaking of him like he's incapable.
For them, I do not believe they had security.
You don't believe or you know, Bobby, because we know you know. We know you know.
They were elderly couple, so I don't even know if they cared.
Being older and elderly, they don't care about their safety.
But apparently they didn't, because then Brinks came afterwards and installed. And I know that for a fact because she called me and said, well, they're getting security now. And I think Chris said that was because they felt like they were being threatened and all that.
The neighbor called and said, well, guess what, Bobby? They're putting security footage up now. They're getting cameras now, Bobby. And that's because Chris felt like he was being threatened. No, he was being threatened. He was, but okay.
That kind of stuff, which I can't prove or deny, whatever. That's up to them. That's
one thing Bobby can't prove or deny. She's all up in the groups, even the groups that are bad mouthing them. But that's one thing Bobby doesn't know for sure. That's one thing she cannot tell you if they were actually being threatened. Sure, Bobby.
Business. But from what I understand, they did not have anything before that.
So, interesting. Very, very interesting. Has the Proudfoots been back at their home? Like, are they there?
She has been. I think she went back to work because she's been home and her van comes and goes.
Bobby knows. Okay, Katie's van comes and goes. Medical girl, I have to disagree with you. Were you staring at your screen the whole time? Respectfully. Were you staring at your screen the whole time to know if that happens? All right, so Katie's back at work.
I think Chris came in one weekend. I don't know, but I've kind of just stopped. Like I was,
Listen to
I would
this.
drive by once every, like maybe once a week just to see, if
Bobby was driving by once a week to spy. Bobby, girl, we know it wasn't once a week, lady. We know it wasn't once a week. You mean once a day? Once an hour? Once a week she would drive by to see.
I would drive by once every, like maybe once a week just to see, if they were there, because they were there. And it was just like, and Katie's right. I heard her say that they were trying to leave to kind of give us a break because we were getting overwhelmed. We were all.
So again, the neighbors were complaining. So everybody made it like Katie and Chris just ran from the house out of guilt. But no, the nosy neighbor that's driving by and adding to the traffic is complaining about the traffic. Okay. Bet you were sad, Bobby, when you found out they were leaving. It really, slowed down your spine, didn't it?
All getting very upset and very overwhelmed with all the traffic and stuff. And, I do appreciate her saying it for recognizing that. However, I was really shocked because I felt like that if my kid was missing, I don't want to say I would.
So Bobby's driving by, adding to the traffic, but yet she's complaining about the traffic and she's getting overwhelmed with the traffic because she can't run everybody's license plate to find out who and what they are. But yet she's surprised that Katie left. Okay.
Handle it differently because I don't ever want to be put in that situation, and I don't want to make karma come after me. But I can't imagine leaving my house if my child was missing.
Then maybe you, Karen, should have stopped bitching about the traffic, ma'am.
Yeah, no, I mean, she's been called out by that. I mean, she's claiming that she can't wait for him to come into the door, Bubba. And,
right. But I'm not her. I'm not her, and I can't. I'm not gonna say that she did the wrong thing because I have no business saying that. I'm just surprised. I do appreciate the fact that she did recognize that we were getting overwhelmed with traffic and whatnot. So I do appreciate that. But and we were. But I would just think that maybe Chris goes back to work and she stays there just in case. But everybody handles things differently, and if that's what she felt like she needed to do, then who am I to judge that?
But they haven't, since this incident happened, they really don't come out at all, interact with anybody that you know of.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've seen them interact with a neighbor very close to them a couple of times.
She saw them interacting with the neighbor close to them a couple of times. Bobby's sitting there behind a tree with the binoculars, staring at the Proudfoot house to see what's going on. And she saw them interacting with the neighbor a couple of times.
Be out talking to one of the neighbors, but I have not seen them out talking to anybody else.
There's rumors there's rumors that they might be moving. You know anything about that? Have you heard? Is there talk?
I've heard that so many times, and there's no confirmation of that.
She said she drove by.
Interesting.
I've asked we have a couple of realtors in our neighborhood, and I've asked them, and they've not. It's like I have not heard any confirmation.
Bobby's even calling up the realtors. Hey, Susan, did you hear anything about the Proudfoots moving? Oh, Bobby.
Know that.
Has one more thing. Has the detectives or authorities ever go back to their house, like in certain time, like maybe like a week or 2 weeks after Sebastian went missing? Have they ever returned to the home?
Oh yeah, they came back. What was it, week 2 or 3? They came back and basically started it all over again. Started the searching all over again, and they also reenacted the whole scene. And they started at 10 o'clock Sunday night ish. Was it something like that?
She even knows what time they started the reenactment. She even knows the time and the date. Lord.
That Sunday night going into the early the next morning to see if they could kind of retrace each one of the steps and everything that happened.
Type of deal.
What are they retracing if there was no dog hit? How could they retrace it?
Yeah.
Interesting, but nothing seems got their evidence and got something out of that possibly.
If they did, they're not telling us.
Well,
they're not. How's the neighborhood now?
Would you tell Bobby anything? Bobby be calling up every neighbor on a fucking 3, 4, 5, 10-way calls, giving them the latest gossip. I wouldn't tell Bobby a thing. Lord.
I think it's getting better. I mean, I'm noticing a lot of neighbors are getting out more and walking dogs again and talking. And
she sees Susie and Tim walking that golden doodle they got back in 2013 from that pet shop, walking again.
I think people think that we're all like huddled together talking about everything that's going on, and it's not like that at all. I think
it's not like that at all. Yes, it is, Bobby. It is most certainly like that. Matter of fact, Miss Bobby here tells us how the 5 of them hold on, wait till you see this. Wait till you see this. Look. Bobby's never bored. Listen to what Bobby says here.
Everything else in their mind is irrelevant. It's weird.
That's how I felt. That's how I feel. I can't prove it. I mean, I don't know for sure, but that's how I feel. And that's what a lot of us feel like. I mean, a lot of us feel like I had 4 or 5 of my neighbors come over to my house one day, and we sat in my house and talking about all this and kind
of. So they're not gathering around. Just the 4 or 5 of them are gathering around to talk about this.
I feel, and that's what a lot of us feel like. I mean, a lot of us feel like I had 4 or 5 of my neighbors come over to my house one day, and we sat in my house and talking about all this and kind of sharing stories and stuff of what we feel, and we all feel like something is going on.
No, you don't say.
Something isn't right.
Miss Bobby, somebody in the chat
oh, please.
Asked if
look at the asshole on the screen highlighted. I never believed CP that the neighbors wouldn't allow a visual. Well, now you owe them an apology, asshole. Because not only was he correct that the neighbors wouldn't allow it, but he was also correct that the neighbors were complaining about traffic, and that's why they left their home. They didn't leave out of guilt. They didn't leave to hide. They didn't leave to hide a body. They didn't leave to go drop Sebastian off somewhere. They left because your bobbies of the neighborhood were complaining. Okay? So you owe them an apology. Fucking Burger King crown wearer. Queen of Burger King. Look at her. I never believed CP. I've been calling him nothing but guilty this whole time. That Katie's an alcoholic that murdered her son. I never believed him. But she's telling the truth, right? But they're telling the truth. You think she's going to apologize? I don't think so. I don't think so.
If
you know what else I found hysterical? She goes and gets a membership during JLR stream and then proceeds to say, can anybody see my membership? So everybody has to acknowledge her. JLR don't fucking care for you. Okay? All right. Just got that shit.
When you had that neighborhood vigil for Sebastian, were the Proudfoots invited?
Oh yeah, it was all over our Facebook page.
So they knew.
Absolutely. Well, if they were and we had planned it a week before, so it's not like.
In my background, my son's breaking in a baseball glove. If you can hear that, I don't know if you can hear that.
It was last minute, throw it together. It was, a matter of fact, one of the neighbors that helped me organize it, she actually had posted it on her profile, like just on her as a posting, and just said, I'd love to have a vigil. Let me know if you.
So the neighbor posts it on her visual or on her personal Facebook, but expects the Proudfoots to see it and show up. Oh, thank you, Jeannie. I appreciate just hitting the thumbs up's all I asked for. Thank you. That's really sweet of you. Right? We invited them through our personal Facebook pages.
Anybody is doing one, and I messaged her and said, hey, why don't we do this in our neighborhood? That way the family can come as well, and it can just be our private neighbors. And she's like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea to me. So I put it on the Facebook page
the Facebook page that's been bashing the Proudfoots, inviting them to come. Gotta love it. Of course she did, Kathy. Listen, listen. Believe me, he knows.
post. I tagged her in it, and I said, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is where we're going to be. And then several people posted asking what time. We kind of kept going back and forth.
She's actually always going to be known as the woman that allowed Seth Rogers come up there, didn't ask him one single question or to elaborate on anything, and allowed Seth to give a very embarrassing, humiliating, personal story about his son. That's what she's going to be known for. And the fact that she's legally blind because she can't see the drive-thru, and that she needs her bills paid.
About what day, what time, and whatever.
And that she wants to wear granny skin.
So did we go to their door and knock on their door and personally invite them? No, but we didn't do that with anybody. And
so they weren't even personally invited, but you're all mad that they didn't show up? That's not an invite, Bobby.
Had a big group show up.
And they would have, they knew it, one was existing. Instead, you said they brought 2 representatives, family members.
They sent 2 representatives. I think they were dealing with things a little bit bigger than Bobby's gossip sesh. Sorry. So, yeah, I mean, listen, if we listen to everything Bobby said, she pretty much just told us everything we already know. Send JLR with super stickers, $4.99, but can you pay her bills? Her son needs a community paid computer. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Bless it. Bless it. But yet, Genevieve, if we go back in time to when her son uploaded that horrific video of himself, Brittany came back and yelled at everybody that her kids are spoiled and they have everything they want and need. They each had their own PlayStations. They each had their own, all the things, their own phones, all the things. But okay. Electro, thank you so much. So everything, well, that's right. Besides the suspicious car. That's right, Gary. Let's get to that really quick. But everything else she said was pretty much just the gossip that was going on in these groups at the time. Let me get off this suspicious car. All right, let's play this really quick. But most of it's just speculation. Everything else she has kind of shared is everything that we know. It's just mainly speculation. All right.
Responsibility.
Bobby's excited again.
I mean, if one of their theories is Sebastian got kidnapped, and they never said Sebastian was kidnapped.
But there was there were no cars that came up their street and then left up their street and left. The only car that was ever seen was the one that was on Kellen that parked on the corner of Stafford and Kellen for about 3 or 5 minutes, where the flashlights came towards it, backed up and left. And then the trash truck, and then Katie's SUV, and then the police, or then the trash truck where the flashlights came towards it, backed up and left. And then the trash truck, and then Katie's SUV, and then the police, or then.
Oh, bless it. Bless it, bless it, bless it. So we got, all right. That's a lot, Bobby. Hold on. Slow it down.
And then left. No cars that came up their street.
No cars came up their street.
And then left up their street and left. The
street and left.
Only car that was ever seen was the one that was on Kellen.
So the car on Kellen.
That parked on the corner of Stafford and Kellen.
It parked on the corner of Stafford and Kellen.
For about 3 or 5 minutes.
3 to 5 minutes.
Where the flashlights came towards it.
And the flashlights came towards it. Sounds like we're describing what would be the car that picked up Sebastian. Maybe the police didn't want this information out.
Backed up and left.
And then it backed up and left. So it didn't even drive just forward. It backed up and left. I mean, that's suspicious. That's weird. This car doesn't have side lights. All street legal vehicles have to have side lights. It's an ATV. Bobby has an ATV. Well, she goes on to mention the Uber, Cotton Candy. Hold on.
And then the trash truck, and then Katie's SUV. And then.
So the trash truck, then Katie's SUV.
Then the police, or then the school bus, and then the police.
Then the school bus comes down the street. So we got the trash truck, then Katie, then the school bus, then the police.
So there was no other car that ever drove up Stafford.
Was it a car that the lights went to? or like an SUV or a car? Like what type of vehicle was it?
I don't know. I don't remember. It just the words that where I was told was unidentified car. I don't.
So she was told an unidentified car. So maybe the police are investigating this unidentified car. Maybe they didn't want this released to the public.
Know if it was an SUV or a car or what. That was just
Damn, Bobby don't know.
what I was told. It was an unidentified car. And that was another thing is when I asked the lead detective, I said, this car that was on Kellen, he was like, yeah, we already figured that out. That was an Uber. And I was like, no, the Uber.
Here she goes again, arguing with the popo. Listen, at this point, I think I may trust Bobby's investigative skills more than the police. The police say, yeah, we already figured out that was an Uber. Bobby says, no, just like it wasn't a trash truck. Knock it off, Popo. Then again, they don't owe Bobby any answers. Third-party info, Stryker, you're right.
It was on Kellen. He was like, yeah, we already figured that out. That was an Uber. And I was like, no, the Uber was a neighbor on Devon.
She even knows what neighbor got the Uber. She's like, no, that was Mr. Jones over on Devon. He got the Uber to the airport because he was going to Punta Cana for a week. He's going to be back on Friday the 16th at 7:43 p.m. and he's going to order another Uber. Lord have mercy.
Ordered an Uber about 5:30 to go to the airport. I know that.
So maybe the guy on Devon also ordered an Uber. Maybe there was 2 Ubers. But did Sebastian order an Uber? Did whoever lured Sebastian out order an Uber? Did somebody have an Uber drive them to get Sebastian? Did Sebastian order it himself? I don't know. I don't even know.
But the car sitting on, why would it?
Can I also point out that it's not JLR that's highlighting comments? It's actually Magnolia. So don't go bragging. That's a little weird there.
Car sit on.
Wasn't she just bad-mouthing JLR not too long ago? She definitely was. Definitely was.
Kellen, if they were going up the street, the car sitting on, why would a car sit on Kellen if they were going up the street to get the customer to leave? I mean, you don't sit there.
Maybe they showed up a little early, Bobby. You didn't call Uber and ask them? I hit the thumbs up when I got here and I already have a Bobby. I did see some of the show about your neighbor. That's wild. That is wild.
Coincidentally, at the same time, lights are flashing around the time.
Well, at the same time, the trash truck would have been through there. So
Yeah.
like, you wouldn't have gotten that confused. Why would a car be there?
Around the time.
Well, at the same time, the trash truck would have been through there. So
Yeah.
like, you wouldn't have gotten that confused.
Bobby's telling you what time the trash show up. Hey, Spudler. She's funny, though. She is funny.
Why would a car be sitting on a road like around 3:30, 4 o'clock Monday morning? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
There's 2
Well, one
Magnolias.
thing I say, and it's the truth, the law enforcement is not obligated to tell the public the truth.
That's true.
We have to tell law enforcement the truth if we're being interrogated or questioned or whatnot, in a sense, because you could be.
Thank you, JLR, for telling Bobby she doesn't need law enforcement's investigation and she's not entitled to the truth of it. But yeah, I mean, one thing for sure is Bobby is a trip, man. You are funny, Bobby. Bobby heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who. Oh, thank you so much. Keep grinding up. Thank you. So yeah, that was the neighbor's interview. Like I said, there's a few inconsistencies. It does sound like she's just kind of repeating what she heard, who she heard. If you know, it's like telephone game down the line. Bobby's really into all of this, though. I mean, she's put on her detective hat and she's really, you know, how do you know the timestamps of the car if the time was broken? Well, she must have called Uber themselves. This lady is all in with Terry Lynn and Seth, but she's going on JLR, especially since Seth doesn't like JLR anymore. Well, she's also in with Trevor Lee. And I heard she spoke to T-Rev. I don't know if that's true. But her timing of wanting to come out and talk is very suspicious, right? Does anybody else find it weird after 3 months of being all up in this? that is a little bizarre that she's now coming out. Who is? Oh, thank you so much, Wayne. Weird and wonderful. Who is? Yeah, it's very bizarre. Like at this point, we got Tony's baloney floating around. We got Seth going on that ratchet panel and saying those despicable things about Sebastian, and once again, bad-mouthing Katie. I mean, if there was ever a time when Seth Rogers needed somebody to get the focus back onto the Proudfoots, it would be now. And maybe it was okay for her to go on JLR's because JLR has such a large audience that it would for sure work and getting people to go back after Proudfoots. But we've broken it down. Right? And the fact of the matter is, the story she gave of Chris being aggressive and mean and scary was an average response from an average person. I would have felt the same way. Thank you, Sandy. This woman comes down, it's so dark, you can't see your hand in front of your face, but then acting shocked that Sebastian wasn't caught on the neighbor diagonal's ring cam. Of course he wouldn't be caught on that. Well, and she does say that the trash comes at that time. You're right. I don't know. I rarely do social events. Some of my husband's newer friends aren't sure I actually exist. We're all different. I agree. Oh, currently? Let's check that out. Hold on. Oh, it's his friends. Well, who are his friends? What would I type in to get it? Weird and wonderful. Fact of the matter is, whenever a shit show happens, usually JLR front and center makes him look more sus, in my opinion. Maybe looking beyond. I think we'll never know. Oh, you didn't hear that? So hold on. She goes into this whole giggle manic thing about the lights and what time the trash trucks come. And she actually argued with the police that they're wrong about the trash truck, that it's not a trash truck. And they're saying, no, it is a trash truck. But Bobby tells them it's not. And she knows. All right, let's play.
Time does the trash get picked up in the morning?
That is the biggest misconception. Here we go with the whole light thing, right? This is where we're going. So
one more thing first. The very first day, the dogs. You saw dogs out there. You saw.
Oh yes,
did you
absolutely.
See the dogs going a specific direction or area? Did you see them centered around a certain area, or did they pick up any scent?
Okay, so there was no scent that was picked up from their house to anywhere. However, and my kids were with.
Exclude the trash, because the trash is what everyone is like curious about. The time the trash picks up, and then in reference to the lights, we're going to talk about the 3 a.m., 3:10 a.m. lights. Let's talk about the trash. What do you know?
So our trash gets picked up by J.E. McMurtry Disposal, has for many, many, many years. They used to, a few years back, they would pick up around 6:30-ish, but then the bus was coming through and it was making it hard for them to come through with the bus, and all the kids were out and it was just chaotic. So they switched it, and now they go down my street about 5:30, 5-ish, between 5:15-ish, 5:20, something like that, every Monday morning. That's going down my hill, though. That's not when they come in and they're going around it. That's when they're coming back down. So, yeah.
She knows what time they go down her hill. Not what time they start and pick up, just when they go down the hill. So 5:30.
I mean, that's an extra, 20 minutes? How long does it take for the trash truck guy to go through the whole entire neighborhood?
And the other misconception is a lot of people are saying that they have to hand dump the trash bin in there. They don't. It's a new truck. They have an arm, and it does it for them. So that was another thing where they're having to pick up these big. No, they're not. They have an arm. They roll.
So how would the cop know? I'm sorry, the trash man know that the trash was heavier that day? If they have all this, I don't know.
Roll it over to the arm, connect it to the arm, and they dump it in. You can hear it. I mean, it's not quiet. It's loud. I mean, you can hear the arm doing all that. So by the time they collect the trash coming up the street though, not going down it. They're
She's so
collecting
weird.
it as they come up. So I guess
So they only collect the one, the right side. She's just, I don't know. She's funny, man. She knows everything. She even knows what direction the truck drives to pick up the trash. Bobby's very impressive, Bobby. I like you. I like you. You're any predators, peeping toms. It sounds like Bobby here might be.
they're probably in the neighborhood just like around 5, just before
Got it.
5.
And they're out of there before the buses come,
Yes,
or the bus come, or the, you
absolutely.
said buses. Where's trash go?
Oh, it gets dumped in either now.
Oh my goodness, I'm done with Bobby. But yeah, so I just listen. I find it suspicious that Bobby's part of the Seth group. She's part of the group that was immediately bad-mouthing the Proudfoots. She went on there to say not kind things about the Proudfoots. All of it sounds and smells weird to me. Why did Bobby come out and speak now? What made Bobby speak now? How much can Bobby really confirm if it's he said, she said? I was wondering that too, Colleen. And I'm like, this is just because if they have the hand that picks up the trash, then they'd have to do both sides. They have to do it going up the street and coming down the street. But according to Bobby, I don't know. Saying none of the neighbors ever saw Sebastian, yet, the one neighbor reported he was found hiding underneath his car. Things are weird here. Then is saying nobody ever saw him, but then he'd be out there playing with the dog. Then she goes on to say that Chris and Katie would be arguing out front sometimes. Man, you didn't even know the prior neighbors moved. How do you know they were out there arguing? Nobody even knew they existed, according to you. Now you know about their arguments out front. There's just a lot of weird statements from Bobby, and I think it's just Look. Let me play you this, and then I'm done with Bobby. Listen to what Bobby says here.
I remember this, and I do remember that, and I do remember this, and oh wow, this is like all connected. But when it happens over a year period of time, and it's just random, but then nothing really ever comes of it, you just kind of try to stay in your own lane and mind your own business, because you're not hearing, like, I don't know that neighbors heard screaming, or like, I don't know that it was like the things that were being said outside were loud enough to make neighbors call. I don't think it was that kind of like, if a neighbor next to me, I heard a kid screaming, help me, don't, whatever, I would be calling the police. Like, okay, I'm going to go inside. I'm going to call the police and be anonymous. It wasn't that kind of a thing. It was things that were said and arguments between them that made neighbors think, gosh,
Well, when you say that, are we talking Chris and Katie, or is Seth?
Interest between my kids and I, or my husband and I, we would be inside. I wouldn't be outside making that known. And apparently,
Your theory, based off you being a neighbor, based off you.
Issues, like there were some personal, that one. I know there were some family issues, like there were some personal stuff going on within the family between Katie and Chris. Seth told us, that he was supposed to get full custody.
Seth told us that he's supposed to get full custody. No, he's supposed to get summertime custody. But Seth told her, okay, Bobby's friends with Seth here. Don't forget that.
One minute he says that Katie was okay with it. The next minute I'm hearing that Katie was not okay with it. I don't know their personal story. I know that neighbors are close by them heard fighting.
And don't forget, she got done saying nobody ever knew them. They never saw them. They didn't even know they existed. Didn't even know the old neighbors moved out. But now she's going to tell us this.
Neighbors are close by them heard fighting within their family outside, verbal things that were said outside. So I don't know that it was, I think there were some struggles within the family. I mean, every family has issues. I get that, but I don't know. Families typically would get into that kind of a dispute outside. I mean, if I was,
you all never had an argument in the driveway with your partner, really, Bobby?
Going to have a conflict of interest between my kids and I, or my husband and I, we would be inside. I wouldn't be outside making that known. And
So Bobby argues inside because she doesn't want the Bobbies nearby her to hear them arguing.
apparently there were some situations where things were heard that weren't good.
Bobby, when did those fights occur? Do you know?
She don't know. nothing.
When we over the past, I mean, I guess since they've been there, like periodically, it wasn't like a one-time thing. It was, there were
okay.
other, times where things were said and that kind of thing. I don't live close enough to them to have heard that. I mean, they would have to have screamed at each other
So again, you're not a neighbor, Bobby.
for me to have heard that. I didn't hear it, but I know that neighbors around them have reported hearing things that were
Isn't that interesting when she decides to become a member?
said outside, and it wasn't like a one-time thing.
Any cops ever get called? Or-
Well, I mean, CPS was called multiple times, and I know teachers personally that still work at Beech that were told things and they had to report it. I mean, when
How do you know that, Bobby? Those teachers should all be in trouble now, especially if they're still employed. They're telling you about CPS calls that they had to report. That's against the rules, ma'am. Bobby, you just got those teachers in trouble. That is against the rules. They can't do that.
still work at Beech called multiple times, and I know teachers personally that still work at Beech that were told things and they had to report it. I mean, when a teacher is told, counselors and teachers are told things, they by law have to report it.
How do you know that these teachers were told things, Bobby? Either the teachers just broke. Yeah, right, lady. Yep, full of rumors.
And I know that absolutely. And I know that, kids can be over exaggerating. I know that, especially teenagers, that kind of thing. I think for me, I think my kids would be respectful enough with us that if something happened, I don't think they would go and say, like, my mom is mean to me. Like, they know that's not true, and they would get in trouble for lying. So for him to make up that things that he was saying, I can't imagine him making certain things that were set up enough for CPS to be called on them. And I know they were called multiple times.
Multiple times. So when you say multiple, how?
So she knows they were called multiple times by these teacher statements. Wow. Do you? Yo, baby blondie? Okay.
How many times?
I have no idea.
No, you should
I have
know
no
that.
idea.
Has any
I'm not
neighbor?
privy to that information.
Oh, now,
Has any
now
neighbors?
she's not privy to that information. You just got done telling us you know this information.
Does anybody tell you that they've seen the CPS at their house? Like,
I don't know. They have not actually used the words "I've seen them at the house," but they've told me that there have been people that have visited an official. Like, I don't know.
They didn't even know he existed, Tonya. Yep.
Like, the car that comes is not going to have CPS written on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it may have a government official, like, license plate or something like that. And they're not going to have they're going to have a badge on them as they go to the front door, but it's not going to be something that a neighbor is going to see, that kind of thing. So I don't know, like, neighbors haven't said, like, I have seen this happen, because they were really paying attention. I don't think it was one of those things where I don't think neighbors, like, after this has happened, some of the neighbors are going back and saying, wait a minute, I remember this, and I do remember that, and I do remember this, and oh wow, this is like all connected. But when it happens over a year period of time and it's just random, but then nothing really ever comes of it, you just.
Well, that's with anything. Like when they found out that Bundy was a killer, all of a sudden people, thought back to the way he ate and called it strange, right? Because people make strange things up once they know something.
Just kind of try to stay in your own lane and mind your own business, because you're not hearing, like, I don't know that neighbors.
Oh, you failed at that, Bobby.
Heard screaming, or like, I don't know that it was like the things that were being said outside were loud enough to make neighbors call. I don't think it was that kind of like if a neighbor next to me, I heard a kid screaming, "Help me!" Don't, whatever, I would be calling the police. Like,
This is
okay,
crazy.
I'm gonna go inside. I'm gonna call the police and be anonymous. It wasn't that kind of a thing. It was things that were said and arguments between them that made neighbors think, gosh,
Mm.
But when you say that, are we talking Chris and Katie, or is Seth in the picture too? Is it like, were there arguments with Seth there?
I don't think
Come on,
Seth was
Ellen.
ever there long enough. I think he was there long enough to pick Sebastian up for his weekend, or they would meet somewhere for his weekend or something like that. I don't think that Seth was ever there. I think it was mostly
Seth was there. Seth said he'd be waiting in the driveway for Sebastian to get off the bus. Seth was there. Every week to my ex-mother-in-law. Ooh, that would make me angry.
the one neighbor told me that she heard, and I'm not going to go into a lot of whole big detail because I don't want to get into their whole personal life. It's not my place.
What?
But a
Girl, you done dived into their personal life. You already did it.
neighbor had told me that there were things that were said between, like, Chris and
Hey,
Katie would get
Laura.
into an argument, like in the driveway, and then Sebastian might come outside and Chris would raise his voice at him, either get inside
Sebastian may come outside. He might come outside. She's just making this up as she goes along now. I mean, she's just fabricating this.
or what are you doing out here, or make comments to him like that. And like I said, it wasn't like, I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to
Oh no, what are you doing? Get inside. The horror.
beat your butt. It wasn't like such a horrible thing to make a neighbor call 911. It was just a very abrasive enough to, now that he's missing, they go back and think, oh,
So that's kind of like, that was the kind of what you were saying when the neighbors kind of put these pieces together after the fact.
Right. It's one of those things that you go back and look and think, oh, okay, so maybe there was something to that.
See, now, this is what I want to remind you all. So she's claiming that neighbors are going back and they're thinking. And they're like, oh, yeah, remember when Chris and Katie argued in the driveway and Sebastian came out and Chris yelled at him? But it's the same woman who claims that nobody knew the Proudfoots. She didn't even know what Chris looked like. And nobody knew Sebastian even lived there. Nobody even knew there were kids in that home. But now she got stories for days. Lord bless it. Lord bless it. I mean, saying that about the teachers was stupid. She never witnessed any. This is all like the neighbors gossiping, the 4 or 5 of them getting together and, sitting around with tea, discussing what they think happened. It's just a lot of gossip. And it's likely why she waited so long to come forward with it, as a distraction to get the topic back onto the Proudfoots, if you ask me. But I don't believe much of what she's saying. Right, she said Faith was never there. No, all these weird things. I don't know. Her neighbor knew when Katie went into her driveway, but she couldn't tell you if there was a mattress or like, everything's weird here. I feel like I don't think Bobby has bad intentions. She sounds like she was already involved in her neighborhood and the neighborhood, town groups, and she's the admin, all that. So maybe when something like this big happened in her neighborhood, she felt it very personal to figure out what happened and wanted to help. But I do think now coming forward with all of this becomes a problem. I mean, you're making allegations that Chris was abusive and threatening, and you're a lot of gossip, and it's not right. It's not right. And she is friends with Seth. Seth told her. Seth said she's in Seth's Facebook group. She's definitely sent in by Seth. Around the same time frame, Ginny. Is that what you think it is, Ellen? I don't know. It's worse, multiple docs and physical threats I've seen in 12 years on YouTube. I did not. I never even heard of that. Who were they doing it to? Oh, I just seen something about her the other day because that lip person made a post. She's in Facebook groups and she has to have seen things Seth has been doing, right? Yeah. I mean, she said she watches all the YouTubes and all. She knows. That's what I think's happening, Rihanna. And I think she's so like deep in it that she doesn't know facts from gossip at this point. It's all kind of merged together based on her own bias. And that's what she's repeating. But I appreciate you all being here with me through it. Again, we're coming up on 3 years of Summer Wells with no answers. I sincerely, deeply pray that is not the place we reach with Sebastian. I hope that Sebastian comes home sooner than later, and I mean soon. She's going by what she has been told, what she has seen on social media. She doesn't know any of this. Remember, she lives down the street far away from their house. Yeah. Right? Sunnyside is all we can do is just pray. It's been 3 years without the Wells being arrested either. It's just, there's no answers. Scotty, you gotta become a member. You gotta send a super chat, and I gotta highlight your thing so you can run back to your channel and brag how I highlighted your thing. She is such a dork. She really is. Such a dork. I got to go get my Burger King crown. I told her I was stealing it, so got to go grab one. 3 blocks away she lives. She doesn't know anything. I'm going to be looking at my neighbors all day. It's getting to the point I don't need to comment. You're literally reading my mind. I bet this wasn't as big of a boom as JLR thought it was going to be. No, because it was kind of things we already heard, and it was just like a nosy neighbor confirming things and denying things and repeating things. It was all kind of the same, right? But my little guy got his baseball glove in the mail, so we got to go have a catch. I appreciate you all being here with me this morning. I hope everybody has a great Tuesday. Let's remember and say some prayers for Summer coming up on 3 years. I couldn't even fathom how that feels. Let's pray that Sebastian makes his appearance soon, and this is not a similar outcome where we're 3 years down the line. If you haven't, please take this moment to hit the thumbs up, and I will see you all back here tomorrow. On February 26, 2024, an Amber Alert went out for 15-year-old Sebastian Rogers. Sebastian is white, 5'5", 120 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. Sebastian was last seen wearing a black long-sleeve shirt, black sweatpants, and glasses. He has a medical condition that may impair his ability to return safely without assistance. If you have seen Sebastian or have information regarding his whereabouts, please contact the Sumner County Emergency Center or TBI at 1-800-TBI-FIND. Oh, I wanted to interrupt this for a minute. So you know how everybody's shocked that there was such a big turnout when Sebastian, disappeared or couldn't be found? That would be why. Because they stated that his medical conditions would make it hard for him to return on his own, safely on his own. So they pull out all the stops. It wasn't just reported as a runaway or, it was reported as an emergency Amber Alert. So that's why they would come out, immediately off the bat, going through all the stops to try to find Sebastian. It's not that big of a mystery, honestly. It's just not that big of a mystery. He was, like I said, reported as not being able to return without assistance. So, all right. I'll see you all back here tomorrow. Have a great day.